story begins inside an abundant rainfall that has created this giant tree forest, where the rich wood and the fruits are the main source of income for the surrounding villages. But in the depths of the forest, huge black shadows are often seen, just like a one-armed monster, who is towering an adventurer that wants to have a fair duel with him. And the adventurer was full of spirit to face him even if he is already exhausted. Still, he knows his cheeks will be clapped if he didn't take this seriously, so he decided to bet everything on this last move. So when the one-armed beast used its ultimate move, and lunged his body towards him, in half a second he jumped to avoid the attack, and because it was such a massive attack, the adventurer made use of the smoke to take this opportunity to get close, and then activate the combo skill of Sound Step and Cross-Pull Blade Slash, to instantly kill the motherfucker in front of him. And with that, he successfully defeated an elite boss by himself, and he was praising himself of how brilliant of a genius he was. Surprisingly, the elite boss dropped a magnificent loot, the heavy sword it was using, and it actually has an advanced attribute that lowers 5 level requirements, in which he felt so lucky to be able to get such a weapon on the first day of the launch of the server. And with it, he can definitely be on the level and combat ability ranking. And as he was looking at his newfound weapon, a system fairy appeared, congratulating him for obtaining such a strong weapon, which the adventurer was glad. And since she appeared, he asks if there are any news that may catch his attention, to which she informs him that there is a limited time event that have been activated, and it seems like a limited time rare boss, named the Blood Moon Walker, has spawned in the giant forest, and defeating it will reward them a rare equipment and a massive amount of experience. With this news, the adventurer couldn't contain his smile, as this was what he wanted all along, and even though it should have some difficulty, he was excited since he can test out his newly acquired sword. A few moments later, as they were closing in on their target, the system fairy informed the adventurer that it sensed a large number of players heading towards the boss, so she suggested that they need to hurry, or other players will get there first, which the adventurer also felt the same way, but he is having a headache with all these trees everywhere. Suddenly, a purple light shined through the forest just up ahead, and this could only mean that the boss was defeated already, and it dropped purple great equipment. With this, the adventurer hurriedly follows the light, because even if it's an equipment that a warrior cannot use, he can sell it for thousands of gold. With that, he reached his destination, and upon closer inspection, it wasn't only one equipment, but a quite hefty amount of it, and the purple great equipment is in the center of it. With such an amazing sight, any adventurers will be thrilled to take them all, and because the adventurer didn't see anyone, he concluded that he was just lucky that everyone perished with the boss. So he was about to grab the items, and was feeling like the protagonist of the story. However, his celebration was short-lived, as his neck was sliced open by an unknown entity that he didn't even see coming because of how fast it was. With that, he could only look at his newly acquired sword being dropped from his inventory, as he fades away, and it seems the boss was well and alive, and counted that it has killed 418 players. Soon after, a group of adventurers sprinted towards the boss, in high spirit, expecting to kill the boss with their own hands, and get a hand on the loot that it may drop. And because there are only 4 hours until the limited time event ends, they are all going all out in this attack. However, little did they know, this particular boss is built different, as it was specifically made to kill motherfuckers who doesn't know their place. So as they got close, the boss slipped right through them like butter, while instantly clapping their cheeks one after the other. Even the chunky guy wasn't safe from getting sliced up. Seeing that this boss seems quite strong, the elf wasn't planning to get her ass handed to her, so she devised a plan with the others, suggesting that they surround the boss and attack together. And because they are all fucking simps, they follow through the plan and charge first, while the elf was in the rear. But to their surprise, the boss just sliced them up with ease, and he made sure to also kill the one who made the plan in the first place. With this, the surviving players found out that their attempts were insignificant, so they take all the bullshit they can master out of their ass and attempt to escape, because they know that if they were killed here, their equipment and experience will be dropped. Still, the boss wasn't willing to let them go, and so he killed them all, which he counted that he managed to kill 444 players. However, it was still way too less than he expected, and he could only count on the system fairy to get the adventurers to come to him. But before all of this happened, 3 days ago, One of the executives of the company is dealing with a problematic employee named Lee, telling Lee how disappointed he was in him, because he knows all too well that with Lee's ability, he could have obtained the company's equity this year and become a shareholder, and therefore, his future would have been limitless. But instead, he still insists on investigating that missing case, which will damage the company's interests and reputation. So, the board of directors have made a decision to terminate him immediately. Unexpectedly, Lee wasn't fazed by this decision for one bit, as he accepted it calmly, and left the place to go handle the resignation procedures, which the man was speechless. Still, he couldn't help himself but sigh, as he just lost a talented individual under his wing, and now that Lee is gone, he asked Secretary Wang to find someone to replace Lee. However, the secretary wasn't really paying attention to his words, as she was also affected by the sudden termination of Lee, because she chose this position in the first place so that she can see Lee several times a day. But now that Lee has left, she is considering to resign as well. A few moments later, Lee has completely left his work, and was now outside of the building, but now he is closer to the disappearance of his brother, since he finally found evidence about his case. With this, he is more than sure that he will find him soon. Unexpectedly, Lee has the bloodline of Zoro, as he seems to have lost his way, since he is also directionally challenged, who can't differentiate east, south, west, north, and therefore he was now clueless as to where exactly the direction of his house, and this wasn't a problem of his before, since he belongs to a breed of workaholics who only goes home once every 2 years. Meanwhile, as Lee tries his best finding his way home, a lover's quarrel was going on in his house, because the girl found out that his man had another bitch besides her, and not only that, there were 68 of them, which means this guy is working overtime being a menace to society. Still, the guy tries to calm her girl down, however she was already fed up with his lies. Luckily for him, this girl wasn't crazy like that, so she just left the place in tears instead of cutting off his wiener in revenge. Still, the guy has the audacity to get on his knees and use his acting skills to try to convince the girl that he loves her. Meanwhile, Lee finally arrived at their house, but was speechless seeing how big of a douche his little brother was. Still, he was kind enough to ask him if he needed space, which he clearly didn't need, as he immediately changed his mood as if nothing happened at all, and welcomed his brother with a smile, which Lee was happy that his brother was fine, but he couldn't help himself but notice how nasty the place was, seeing the undergarments of women all over the place. So he reminds his little brother that he has to pay attention to household hygiene when he lives alone, and show some restraint in his private life, to which he just laughs it off, and explains that he is just lonely since he just left him all alone in the house. So to prevent such thing to happen again, this time he should accompany him for a few more days, and not leave in a hurry just like the last time, to which Lee clarified that he was about to do just that, because now he found evidence on their big brother's case. This news came to a surprise, which made his little brother happy. Still, it wasn't the time to celebrate yet, so he instantly changed his demeanor to a more serious one, as he tells his brother Lee that the device he asked him to prepare is ready, and tonight at midnight is the time of Fate Fantasy Moon's official server launch, and they were looking forward for this, since they speculated that the reason why their big brother went missing should be related to this game. And just like that, the moment arrived, and so they got their new drip, looking hella fire, and was ready to face the challenges up ahead. And as soon as they entered the game, a system fairy appeared, and introduced herself as the Game Assist Fairy, and they can call her Double C for short, and wish for them a happy journey in this virtual reality. As the game is about to begin, and as the game synchronized with their brain, a character was created successfully. With this, he was teleported to the center of a village where the noob sat. Still, he couldn't help himself but appreciate how lifelike the game was, but his trains of thought was disrupted by his brother calling out to him, and as expected of him, he already rizzed up someone the second he appeared on the game, and asks his brother to form a party to do a mission together, which his brother Lee refused since he is not horny as him, and has more important mission to do first. And just like that, they parted ways, and now that he was alone, he called out Double C to open the special redemption code window, and enter the code he specifically put in the game, that only he could know, and with that, he received 3 messages from the system. Meanwhile, Double C was flabbergasted at what she saw, as her eyes filled with confusion, since she couldn't identify these items his master had just received. So she asked him what it was, to which he clarified to her that these are the cheats he made, which instantly shocked Double C as she was programmed to put an end to cheating. Still, she politely asks her master first to stop the operation quickly, otherwise his account will be banned permanently. However, Lee wasn't fazed by these at all, since he already hid these things in the underlying code of the game, so the system can't find out. Even if someone wants to find it manually, it will take half a year, so banning him will be impossible. And just like that, he received the first item, named the Omniscient Bracelet, and the stats this item gave is not a joke, and the only requirement to equip this is to be level 10 and above. Not only that, this item has a special attribute, and that is activated when a character levels up. The item will level up 2 for every 10 levels, and this item quality can be upgraded once, which triggers a hidden attribute, and that is for every time equipment quality upgrades. It can obtain a random profession specialized skill. However, he knows that this bracelet is too extravagant looking for his current homeless drip aesthetic, so he asks Double C to help him hide this equipment. And then, he went to open the other mail, which gave him an item named Random Achievement Tome, which give him an opportunity for every 10 levels according to the character's event, and generate a random achievement mission and obtain random reward upon completion. And this item even has a hidden attribute that even Lee doesn't know, since he only entered the command for a powerful prop and left the rest for the AI to generate. And then he opens up the third mail, which has the most crucial item of them all, and he worked company in the Fate for 2 years to get this, because when his big brother was doing beta testing, the hidden plot he got was because of this item. So he concludes that this should be the source of Big Brother's disappearance, and if anything happens to him, the evidence will be cut off here, since he can't let anything happen to his little brother off A. With this conviction, he opens the scroll named Hell Azura's Invitation, a scroll that lets him change his profession to an Azura, and will trigger a new plot after changing, which he accepts instantly, and after confirming, his heart immediately started to ache like crazy, and as soon as he opened his eyes, he was now standing in a place full of blood, and 4 robed skeletons appear on all sides, while the crescent moon was all blood red. And then the skeleton chant a mysterious language that he couldn't understand, and then they penetrated him simultaneously, while he was confused as to what is going on, and was wondering why it was happening, since he remembers he didn't design such a plot, and the pain he is feeling right now is way too real for a game. Then he died, and was now falling of deep inside the system, while errors filled the place. Soon after, all he could see was darkness, which made him assume that the game crashed. So he commands the system to exit the game, but to his surprise, the system wouldn't let him exit the game, as it couldn't detect his data source, which made him frantic, as he commands the system to try again, but still he wasn't allowed to. The next thing he knew, he came out of the ground and was now a different entity than he expected. So now he was asking himself why he become a skeleton, since he should be an Azura race instead. And what is more confusing is that he doesn't have an idea where the hell he was. So he got up from his grave, and started to look around, but to his surprise, a pathetic-looking monster with a glowing staff called out to him, calling him his servant, and has a huge grin on his face seeing that his summoning ritual has succeeded. And looking at it, it seems like it is an epic rank boss. Still it was an NPC to Lee, so he tried talking to it, and asks where he was, which surprised the monster, as he didn't expect that his summon could speak. This could only mean that he summoned a rare skeleton guard, but since he didn't respond, Lee assumed that he was useless, so he decided to go find someone else to ask to. However, this action of his only made the monster pissed off, since he expected his summon to approach and kneel to him. However, he couldn't let such a disrespect slide, so it seems like his newfound servant need to be whipped first in order to become an obedient one. Otherwise, it will act arrogant against him. With this, he activated his hell chain, and chained up the motherfucker in front of him, which surprised Lee, as he doesn't have a clue what was happening. But as soon as he saw the monster let out a massive aura pointing towards him, he knew his ass was going to be sent to the Shadow Realm. Luckily for him, before his ass got clapped, a huge entity smashed the monster from where he stood, freeing Lee from his chains, and as he looked up, shock filled his face as he couldn't believe how big the monster was. With this, he was now wondering if he entered the wrong map, and how does he even play the game with such a terrible conditions. Realizing that he doesn't have any choice, he tries to call out Double C in hopes that Double C is still with him. Luckily for him, Double C was still connected to his character, and so Double C explains to him that he is currently in the land of pure darkness. It is the birthplace of all the high-level bosses in the game, the most dangerous place. Now that things have been a little bit clearer, he asks Double C for an idea on how to play the game in such a plot, and if there is a place that he can do missions. So Double C checked for all the information she could gather about this place. Soon after, she found out that there is a mission point located 100 kilometers away from where they stood, so she asks her master to come with her. Still, 100 kilometers is no joke, and they could only travel on feet. So as they climb a mountain, Lee asks if there is no other way to get there, to which she clarifies to him that there is. But this is the shortest route, so if he takes the other routes, the distance will increase by 4 times. So he doesn't have a choice but to stick with Double C's recommendation. With this, they even have to travel on a log, while leviathans chase them on waters, which Lee was questioning Double C what road are they taking, but her words of encouragement keep him going, and luckily Afe could still send messages to him, so it helped him get distracted from the insanity that's happening around him, telling him about the story of his mission, and how he has reached level 5 already, and he even got himself a green grade staff. And knowing his brother well, he expected that he got to level up much higher than him, so he asks him what dungeon was he now on, and what level he reached now. But to his surprise, his brother was still on level 1, which surprised Afe, so he tells him words of encouragement, but Lee couldn't be bothered to hear the end of it, because now he is being chased by another humongous motherfucker that keeps eyeing on him, even though his cake is just made of bones. Fortunately, his will to live helped him get through the challenge he faced, and so he outrun that bitch. And the next thing he knew, they finally see where the mission point was located, and even with the distance, they could see entities lining up to enter this huge place, and getting close to it. Double C estimated that it would take approximately 2 hours if they lined up to enter the main gate, but Lee saw that there is another entrance where no one is lining up, so he tells Double C about it, to which she clarifies to him that it is not the planned route. Still, Lee have wasted too much time already, and the route she planned was too rigid, so it really doesn't matter to him now, even if it isn't the conventional way to get in, as long as he can enter the city. With this, they arrived at the red entrance door, which 2 giant boar guards stopped his advances to ask his reason, to which Lee explains that he has something urgent to do, so he asks them if they could let him in, which made the boar guard smile, as he understood that it is normal to have urgent things to do. So he lets the little skeleton to quickly go in, which surprised Lee as this was the easiest thing he encountered after teleporting in this hellhole of a place. So he even thanked the guards for being such an understanding fellow. But little did he know, as soon as he entered, the guards couldn't contain their laugh anymore, as they couldn't believe such a weak monster to be so clueless to enter such a place. And he even thanked them, and now they were even excited to see how he dies in the Cloud Arena, where 9 deaths will occur, and 1 will survive. Soon after, Lee finally saw the light in the end of the tunnel, but as soon as he reached the end, and embraced the light from the other side, he was greeted by the loud voice of the commentator that welcomes him as a contestant, which confused Lee, while they look at his basic information, and to their surprise, he is only a level 1 monster, garnering the attention of everyone, but not in the good way, as they laugh at how pathetic he was. Even the commentator assumed that this little skeleton is just a cannon fodder contestant. However, as a good commentator he gaslights the crowd, telling them that maybe this little skeleton can show them interesting fights. And now that was all settled, he announced that the Battle Fest officially begins, making the crowd excited, as they look forward to the fight that will unfold in front of them. And just like before, the host and the commenters this time are still their most famous, familiar and favorite duo, the quick-tongued rabbit and the slow turtle, who can't even finish his introduction without the rabbit cutting him off. And even though everyone has heard it many times, but, according to the tradition, they still have to announce the rules, and there are only 3 rules in the Wind Cloud Arena. First, the matches will be conducted in a 1 versus 1 arena battle, and the last one standing will be the winner. Second, the arena keeps everything fair, so all contestants' levels will be adjusted to the level of the lowest level contestant, which the minimum will be level 10, and only skills within the adjusted level can be used, and the equipment will be provided by the Wind Cloud Arena. Third, unless the opponent admits defeat, the only way for the contestant to win is to kill their opponent. As for the rewards, The winner of this Wind Cloud Battle Arena will receive 5,000 EXP, and an epic grade weapon corresponding to their level. With this, they adjusted the levels of all contestants, which will be the lowest level battle recorded in the history of the Wind Cloud Battle Arena. And just like that, they were all level 10, and it seems like the other contestant wasn't fond of this outcome. Because of the rules, even their skills were lessened, and one of the contestant couldn't even use their ultimate move they just learned. So everyone was pissed off by this little skeleton that put them in such a disadvantage, and now they are planning to kill him if they got the chance, and warn him not to think he had a chance, since they are confident in their experience. With this, Lee realized that he fucked up big time, and now he regretted that he didn't listen to Double C and just queued up in line. Fortunately for him, since he has reached level 10, even if it was temporary, the system deemed it to be valid, so he could now choose his starting profession, which showed him several professions to choose from, that even he was overwhelmed by the choices. But remembering the days he used to play with his brothers, he remembered that they always said he was suited to play the assassin, so he concluded that it would be the best choice. So he became an assassin, and a new drip that comes with it. And seeing that most of the contestants have adapted to their level, the commentator decided to go with the next step, giving them their designated equipment. With this, Lee realized that this might actually not be such a bad place to start, and if he can't win, he can just surrender immediately, and it wouldn't be a problem for him. But before they could start the competition, the rabbit went next to announce the most important announcement for today, and that is to welcome their specially invited dream instructors, because in this competition, those who perform exceptionally well may have the chance to receive their guidance. And the person on the left is the Blood Moon City's famous Lord Zhuanghui Shui, the Blood Moon City's Northern Hall Master, who is in charge of the wars of Blood Moon City and strategic deployment. And half of the Blood Moon City's combat ability is under Lord Zhuang's Northern Blood Moon Hall, and 70% of the young generation's experts are Lord Zhuang's disciples. And if one can catch the attention of Lord Zhuang, it would be a great honor which will lead to a bright future and a chance to reach the pinnacle of life. This thrilled the audience, as they shout for his name and try to get his attention. Then the rabbit continues, introducing the other important guest, the Blood Moon City's #1 beauty, Lord Wu Yu, the Blood Moon City's Eastern Hall Master, in charge of Blood Moon City's resource distribution and the Blood Pool Dungeon. And looking at her, she looks hella fine. Even my man the rabbit couldn't deny Lord Wu Yu's beauty, which I personally agree. At the same time, her strength is unfathomable. But Lady Wu Yu has very strict criteria for selecting her disciples. Therefore, so far, Lord Wu Yu has only accepted one disciple. And Lord Wu Yu's one and only disciples is the unparalleled genius who has achieved 10 consecutive victories in the Wind Cloud Arena and shocked the Blood Moon City, Han Xiao. Her appearance also excited the audience, but knowing how ruthless and short-tempered she was, they wouldn't even dare to shout her name out loud. But on the other hand, Li was in shock to hear the name of Wu Yu disciple, Han Xiao, the name of his big brother. With this, he finally have another clue about his brother, and the woman named Wu Yu must know something, so he was thinking of a way to get close to her. But since he openly kept looking at her, he unintentionally caught the attention of Wu Yu, but in a bad way, since she was now thinking if she should just crush him on the spot. Luckily for him, she decided to let it slide, since Zhuang is right beside her, and he may manipulate the decision if she does something quite stupid. But because of this, she was now contemplating on killing Zhuang first. But with everything out of the way, the rabbit announces the start of the competition, so all their attentions were diverted towards the match. And their first match starts with the most highly anticipated Wind Cloud Arena contestant, Blood Claw, from the Blood War Lion clan. Born with an epic grade bloodline, the Blood War Lion clan naturally excels in battle, and Blood Claw is the representative of the new generation of Blood War Lion clan. And his claws are invincible and incredibly sharp, and he is widely recognized as the favorite contestant to win this competition. And just as the rabbit had just said, with one swing of his claw, Blood Claw won with an overwhelming dominance. So, they went on to the next match, with the zombie swordsman, Beilei, from the Great Sword Sect, which is one of the newly emerging factions in the South Moon Hall. And Beilei is the vice captain of the Great Sword Sect. He is said to be quite famous in the South Moon Hall. His sword is fast, precise, and ruthless, There have been countless experts who have lost their lives to him, and as expected, he also won quite easily. And they went on to the third match, and the winner is the dual-blade demon, SLAYER, and he is from the faraway wild, and he fought as the Blood Moon City. His combat ability is not to be underestimated, but what surprised them is the next round, as they didn't expect that the cannon fodder contestant actually won. Even some of the audience was baffled as they couldn't even see how he managed to defeat his opponent, because of how fast it was. With this, things just got interesting. So, the rabbit decided to quickly begin the exciting and thrilling second round of the quarterfinals of the Wind Cloud Arena Battle Fest. With that, the first match was with Lee versus the dual-blade demon SLAYER. But even before they start fighting, SLAYER told Lee to just surrender, since he despises killing weaklings like him anyway, and a little skeleton like him is not qualified to make him attack. But Lee was just there standing menacingly, as he let this bitch yap his mouth for the last time. Meanwhile, on the other side of the game, Afe has wiped out all the goblins with his firebolt, rizzing the girls besides him, and was being the main character of his own story. But even with all the praise he got from the girls beside him, he was still convinced that if they see his second brother, they will know what amazing truly means. A true brotherly admiration from him doesn't change, as he wonder what his second brother doing right now, and if everything is going smoothly for him. And just like what he thinks of his brother, he was now facing his opponent without a single fear in his bones, as he approached him calmly, surprising everyone, as they now realized that this cannon fodder indeed has a backbone. But still, SLAYER wasn't taking him seriously, as he looks down on Lee, and plans to end this match quickly, so he used his burst slash to instantly appear in front of Lee while striking a devastating attack. But to his surprise, Lee manages to dodge it. Still, he refused to acknowledge Lee's skill, so he thinks that he is just lucky to dodge it, and therefore he used the same attack twice, which Lee dodges it again. So SLAYER decided to use his Rending Void skill to change things up, but somehow, Lee dodges it again without trouble, surprising everyone that witnessed it, as they wonder how he just keep doing it. But little did they know, Lee is goated with battle IQ, so he already managed to calculate the length of his enemy's arm with the length of his weapon, and by subtracting his enemy's palm grip length, he concludes that his opponent's maximum swing radius would be less than 2 meters, and as long as he can maintain this 2-meter distance between them, the probability of him getting hit by his attacks is low. But still, he needed to be aware of other skills such as weapon throw, or long-ranged skill, and so he also calculated that the enemy's skill has a half-second cast time, and the skill's flight speed is around 160 kilometers per hour, and with his reaction speed, it isn't hard for him to dodge his attacks. And now that he has created more distance between them, the next move he's most likely going to use is the burst slash skill, which is a straight line charge skill, but during its user's movement, it will momentarily cause the character to become immobilized. So, if he can make use of that moment, he can win. At the same time, the audience was helpful in stirring SLAYER's emotions, doubting his skill, since his attack was easily dodged by the cannon fodder. With this, SLAYER was now pissed, so he lost his cool, and was now damn serious in killing the little skeleton. And just as Lee expected, he used his burst slash, and so, Lee executed his plans effortlessly, while activating his critical hit skill, to kill SLAYER in one blow, surprising SLAYER, as he didn't expect that his dream of becoming the Lord of Oblivion would be crushed by a little skeleton. While the crowd goes wild, as they were in shock to witness the cannon fodder become the dark horse in this battle fest, and so they look forward to his performance in the upcoming finale. Even Zhuang thinks that the skeleton is quite interesting. However, this display of skill wasn't enough for Wu Yu, as she assumes that the skeleton is just a little smarter and nothing special. But since he has kept her from being bored, she decided to reward him a bit more time to look at his skills further, while Zhuang was convinced with Wu Yu's words, since it is true that the lowest ranking bloodline will be useless no matter what. And then, they went on to the next match, where everyone was convinced it to be the championship battle, since it is with Blood Claw against the zombie swordsman Bailey. And just like with other contestants, Blood Claw tells Bailey that he should already know it clearly that he is not a match for him. But still, Bailey wasn't fazed by such claims, and even though his bloodline is inferior to him, he was confident that as long as he has his sword in his hand, Nothing can stop him. And with such conviction, Bailey used his combination skill called Flowing Dance Leap, which was a combination of the water dance and burst slash, and become 5 times faster than Gier's burst slash, to sever Bloodclaw's head in one attack. And as his blade comes close, Bailey was confident that it would connect, and therefore showing to everyone that bloodline aren't everything. However, he soon realized that he is not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
As Bloodclaw looked at his blade and started munching it like the caped Baldy, and now that he made his opponent's blade ineffective, it's his turn to attack, using his dual blazing claw to kill him in one go. And Bloodclaw was an out-of-pocket guy, as he insults his opponent even though he was dead already. And with such outcome, the crowd goes wild and started chanting his name. Even the rabbit assumes that they are looking at the future champion of the Wind Cloud Arena, without considering the last match. While Zhuang also felt the same, so even though his bloodline isn't pure, he deemed this little lion to be fitting to be nurtured by him, while Wu Yu on the other hand wasn't convinced for one bit, as she deemed this lion not even fit to guard her gates. At the same time, Li realized something wasn't adding up, as he couldn't believe the lion to actually bite through Bailey's weapon. Since the weapons are distributed by the arena, they shouldn't be destroyed so easily, unless, even after the lion's level was reduced to 10, his base level was reduced attributes far exceed the average value. So, it seems like he will have a tough opponent to deal with. However, his train of thought was disrupted by the lion, calling out to him, and unlike what he did to the other contestant, instead of discouraging him, he challenges the little skeleton to come to him and fight him head-on, since he haven't had enough fun yet. But this provocation of his didn't affect Li, as he was smart, and if his previous analysis is correct, he is no match for him. But the only way to get close to Wu Yu is to win this competition, so even if he knows he is at a disadvantage, and the commentator is trying to discourage him to forfeit the match, giving up after encountering difficulty is not in his mind, because he wouldn't find his big brother if he would be such a coward, and his brother and Afe are the only family he has left in this world, so they are more important than his life. Therefore, no matter what difficulty he faces, he won't stop. With this, the final match begun, and so the lion was more than happy to insult the little skeleton, as what he expected of a low-ranked creature, a dumb son of a bitch that can't even take a slight provocation. But now that he is facing him, he proudly claims that he will treat the little skeleton as a dessert to celebrate his victory, and plans to make his opponent show his desperation and regret to please him till the end. However, his threats didn't amuse Li for one bit, as he just looks at him like dead meat, so he leaped towards the lion, which the lion discerned that his speed is even slower than the swordman before, way too slow in fact, that he just decided to use one hand to stop him. But to his surprise, the little skeleton just dodged it quite easily, and was now behind him. Still, he dodges it, but now he was reminded that this little skeleton was an assassin, and it seems like he was just pretending to caught him off guard, but it doesn't really matter, since he is still a trash in his eyes. So he used his long-ranged skill to counter, but this was also dodged by the little skeleton. With this, the lion wasn't smiling anymore, as he realized that he is fighting with a flea that is just planning to dodge his attack. And what surprised him even more is that he was now bruised by the one he thought was trash, while not even knowing how he managed to do it. So he took it as an insult, an unforgivable act, since he is Bloodclaw, the noble leader of the younger generation of Blood War Lion clan, so it is an insult to be injured by a lowly trash. With such an outcome, he was pissed more than ever, so he activated his skill, the Blood War, which increases strength and critical hit by 20% for 15 seconds, to kill his opponent in the most humiliating way possible. But seeing Bloodclaw use his skills made everyone assume that the cannon fodder is actually on par with Bloodclaw. Even Wu Yu was now intrigued at what this little skeleton will show her next, since it is strange to witness a monster with a low level and bloodline of the lowest caliber to deliver such kind of amusement to her. Then, Bloodclaw started his attack, leaping towards the skeleton, as he drowns him with flurry of attacks, and even though the skeleton manages to block it, he knows that he couldn't keep this for long, since every strike thrown was heavy like a truck, and just as he expected, he lost his balance, and his defense was broken, and so Bloodclaw used this opportunity to yeet this motherfucker out of existence, while he insulted him one more time. telling him to stay where trash belongs. But to his surprise, as soon as he got close, the little skeleton reveals to him that all of this was just an act, and that he was just waiting for him to use his special move. Because even though his killing move is very strong, but within half a second, he will be unable to turn around immediately. So the little skeleton used this chance to activate his backstab ability and teleport behind the enemy and launch a surprise attack. However, this plan of his could have worked with other contestant, but not with Blood Claw, as he has a skill that doesn't need him to turn around, and that is the Blood Origin skill, Lion Roar. With this, all the enemies within 5 meters will be forcibly immobilized for 1.5 seconds, surprising everyone, even Zhuang. So now he made up his mind to take Blood Claw under his wing, while Wu Yu on the other hand felt it was such a waste, since she finally got interested in a participant for a long time. But she couldn't help it if the little skeleton is unable to survive this, because of a skill issue. And as expected, Blood Claw managed to slice the cannon fodder's hand, and as he steps away, his bones revealed a lack in calcium as it broke in half, and so he also lost his other legs. With this, they are more than sure that the victor was decided, and the only thing left to see is whether the cannon fodder will surrender or stubbornly die on the stage. However, Blood Claw isn't planning on letting the little skeleton live, as he laughs at him while seeing his pathetic state. While the little skeleton, on the other hand, was more than happy to see that things are looking good, because it seems like the fish is about to bite the hook. With this, Blood Claw was trying to think of ways to humiliate the skeleton, such as breaking his bones one by one, or playing with his head like a ball, while Lee's just sitting there menacingly, waiting for his opponent to take 3 more steps towards him. And with that, Blood Claw stepped on the little skeleton's dismembered leg to provoke him even more. But little did he know, this is what he was waiting for all along, and he stepped up and throws his dagger in front of Blood Claw, which Blood Claw assumes that it was just a puny attempt of struggle, so he just block it without thinking that much. But little did he knew, the little skeleton was still in control of his other hand, so it manages to throw the dagger, for him to use it while he activates his backstab skill. And with that combination, he severely injured the proud lion with 1 strike, immediately catching everyone by surprise. And because of how shocking it was, everyone fell silent as they couldn't comprehend what just happened. Luckily for them, they still have another commentator to break off the silence, and since he was being cut off the entire time, he took this opportunity to shine, busting out his magnificent voice to match the fight he just witnessed. And it has been too damn long since he has last seen such a thrilling comeback. So as the rampaging turtle, he took this as a mission to shed some light to everyone on what happened, and that this was all part of the cannon fodder's plan from the very start. He first displayed his speed advantage and attacked the strongest while being weak. He then provoked Blood Claw, causing him to get angry, and when Blood Claw got serious, he purposely pretended to be weak, luring Blood Claw to use his ultimate move. But the most amazing part is, while everyone thought Blood Claw was the one who severed his arm and leg, it turns out that it was actually Cannon Fodder himself who did it. In the end, when they all thought the Cannon Fodder was doomed, he used the skeleton's resurrection skill, which enables him to have spiritual connection to a fallen skeleton bone for a period of time, and made his ultimate comeback by defeating the stronger opponent despite being weaker. So, even if the little skeleton wasn't pregnant, he delivered, and so the Cannon Fodder will have a new title, the Moon Slayer, and he was now planning to put this lion on a shirt to prevent future problem, even if Blood Claw already stated that he surrenders. However, this plan of his wasn't in favor of Zhuang, since he was thinking of getting Blood Claw under his wings, and so he stopped Moon Slayer's advances while knocking him back and using his skills to delete him from existence, which Moon Slayer was powerless to deflect such an attack. Luckily, his wits had garnered the interest of Wu Yu, and so she also stepped up to save his ass, and used heaven-piercing blast to take revenge on the motherfucker who did this to her precious skeleton. And with such overwhelming display of power, even Zhuang had taken damage from it, and was now yapping his mouth, asking for a reasonable explanation why she did such a thing. But she doesn't feel the need to explain herself to him, as she just ignored him, and saved the skeleton that took her interest, and tell him that from now on, he belongs to her.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Chapter Lee was closer than ever in discovering what happened to his brother. But in doing so, he became a skeleton monster, and was now in an unfamiliar place. Still, he got things to do, so he pressed on further, leading him to a place where monsters gather. But because he wasted enough time, he decided to take a shortcut, not knowing that said shortcut was a place where monsters fight to the death. And because he has entered the said place, he has no other choice but to fight. Luckily for him, one of the rules in the arena made all the contestants' level be adjusted to the lowest participant, which was him. But the lowest possible level is level 10, so he became a level 10 skeleton temporarily, and the system even rewarded him a variety of class to choose from. Remembering what his brother said, he chose to become an assassin. With this, he skillfully managed to get to the last round, shocking everyone who witnessed what happened. Still, they thought the competition was over, since he was against Bloodclaw, who has a higher breed than him. But little did they know, he never ran from no smoke, even if he knows his opponent is near impossible to beat, since he needed to show his worth to the baddie, who is sitting at the VIP area, not because he was horny, but because he assumes that she has some clue where his brother is, since his brother is her disciple. So he went to face Bloodclaw, and as soon as the battle started, he used every utensils he got, and straight up started cooking. He even used his Oscar-worthy acting skills to make his opponent overconfident and pissed at the same time. So when the opportunity revealed itself, he didn't hesitate to kill the motherfucker in front of him. And with such sudden turn of events, everyone was flabbergasted. He even gained the title Moonslayer. However, my man is a savage, and ain't no way he was going to let his enemies live, so he was about to finish the job. However, this motherfucker has other plans, so he intervened, saving that shitting bastard of a lion, while trying to obliterate Moonslayer's existence. And he was still a level 5 skeleton, so he ain't got the ability to block it. So it seems like the story was about to end. But luckily, he managed to get the attention of the baddie he was trying to impress, so she helped him. She even attacked the fucker who did this to him, and this meatless son of a bitch got the opportunity to be her property, as she whispered to him that she owns him now, which to me, personally, is not so bad of a deal if she wanted to take me too.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now on to the next part. Wu Yu was finally done restoring Slayer to his original form, and concluded that everything should be back to normal now, which amazed Slayer because not only did his broken bones healed, but they are now stronger than ever before. But his trains of thought was disrupted by Wu Yu charging up another attack, as she tries to threaten the bastard rabbit and turtle that if the results are not announced soon, she would poke both of them as well. And because they don't want to be a donut-shaped creatures, they appeared immediately after she finished her threat, and announced to everyone the rise of a new star, the champion of the Storm Cloud Arena Tournament, Moonslayer. And because of this, the system calculated his rewards, and gave him 5,000 experience points, boosting him up to level 15, and he also gained a new passive ability called Shadow Step, which permanently increases his agility by 20%. With such boost, his attributes also risen significantly. He then received his other reward, an epic weapon that suit his level and class, the Bloodstained Blade, which has a special ability that can convert 10% of the damage dealt into self-healing. Even the commentators were surprised to see such a weapon, because having a vampiric attribute is really impressive, since it will be perfect for prolonged battles, and endurance is crucial in the upcoming events. With that settled, Wu Yu wasted no time and got straight to business, and informed her newfound pet that they would now initiate the Storm Cloud Catastrophe, which Slayer was clueless on what it is, since he is a newcomer to the Storm Cloud platform. So he asks to clarify, and the rabbit understood his circumstances, so he did just that, explaining to him that the Storm Cloud platform is divided into two parts. The first is the arena battle, which select the champion, and the second part is the Storm Cloud Catastrophe, which will be triggered right after, making the Storm Cloud champion descend into the player's world as a limited time boss. The time limit is 1 hour, and the boss will be tasked with ensuring its survival, while hunting down players as much as possible, to obtain experience and contribution points. And contribution points can be used for mutual trades, exchanging advanced skills and weapons. It can also be used to improve one's position and status. And now that it was clear to Slayer, he was about to initiate the next event. But before he could do that, the sore loser who can't take an L confronted them. because he couldn't believe Wu Yu dared to openly attack him, the Lord of the North Hall. So he angrily asks if she is declaring war against the North Hall, but seeing that she isn't responding to his questions, he threatens her that he will report this incident to the city lord. Still, she continued ignoring him. Unexpectedly, he started insulting her instead, calling her an ambitious, opportunistic bitch, and she must be scheming to get rid of him, just so she can take the military resources in his hands, and wanted to rebel. With this, she recognized that staying silent might harm her reputation more than speaking up, so she decided to confront him and call him out for interrupting the tournament, emphasizing that him interrupting the tournament is a violation of the rules, so he should be punished instead of her, and there is no way a demon like him would be kind-hearted enough to save someone's life. So she suspected that he must have already promised the championship title to the old man from the Bloodclaw family, and this may be closer than the truth than what he was spouting, and he even had the audacity to accuse her of rebelling, when he is the one who is always meddling and playing both sides like a busybody. So, the next time he utters another word, she promises that the next time he goes out to battle, she will cut his military salary first, then halt his military provisions, and she won't even supply him with equipment. With this, he could only shout her name out in anger, as he was well aware that he would be in serious trouble if she chose to follow through with her threats. Meanwhile, the three low-level monsters decided to run the fuck out off the place, because they know all too well, if these two started fighting, they are the ones who will perish first. Even half the city's people will suffer. So before that happens, Slayer asks them to take him to participate in the next event, opening a portal in front of him. But even before he could enter it, Wu Yu warns him to not embarrass her, so if he can't kill 1,000 people, he shouldn't bother to come back to her. A few moments later, as he descends to the player's world, his random achievement manual triggered. Seeing that he exceeded level 10 already, it generated a random mission for him, and that mission is the one that Wu Yu ordered him to do, requiring him to kill 1,000 players. Luckily for him, he doesn't have to find players that hard, since the system announced to all the players of his arrival, while it encourages them to kill him on the spot. He even spawned in front of a fodder-looking players, who doesn't have clothes on, which can only mean one thing: their cheeks are ready for some ass whooping. But before he could start, another one of his cheat item had detected that his level has increased, so it automatically equipped onto him, giving him another boost in attribute, and because its quality improves every 10 levels, he will receive a randomly assigned class-exclusive skill, and he will have a chance to refresh and obtain a new skill for the next time it levels up. And as the random skill distribution was on progress, the four bald players has launched an attack from all directions. Still, he dodges their every attack. Soon after, the system finally decided on what to give him: a skill named Hunting Scourgeblade, which enables him to swiftly deliver first slashes to the target, starting at a 110% damage to a 150% damage at the last slash. And if the target is killed by the skill, the slashes will be retained and automatically target a random enemy within 10 meters to continue the attack. And it also has a powerful passive ability, and that is for each enemy killed by this skill, an additional 150% physical damage slash can be added. And because Slayer was smart, he knew exactly how to use this skill at its full potential, so he slashes his way through his opponents, inflicting damage to them significantly, because he knows that as long as he lowers the health of a large number of enemies, and then activating his newfound skill, his hunting proficiency will be doubled, and theoretically, he just unlocked auto-hunting. So, after killing the four players, he summoned Double C to ask if other players can see his location, to which she responded that they can, since the system keep on broadcasting his location to all players in real time. With this, he got that black Air Force energy covering his body, as he was fired up more than ever, since he knows that things just got much simpler for him. And so, as the players appeared, he unleashed his unprovoked menace behavior and started penetrating them left and right, and not long after, only the player's weapon remained, and Slayer was now sitting on a branch of the tree, contemplating to move to a new location, since the number and frequency of players gathering are decreasing, and he can't pick up the player's equipment either, so there's no point in staying further. But before he could leave, another ambitious motherfucker appeared. He even got the audacity to think he is the protagonist of the story, and was planning on taking all the weapons to himself. And so Slayer decided to put this fucker where he belongs.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Slicing his windpipe instantly. And just like what was showed before, the number of players he killed increased to 444. But still it wasn't enough, so he decided to search for more players than wait for them. But before he could do that, the interaction with the ambitious player gave him an idea. So he sent Afe the coordinates of his current location, and told him to go by himself, which Afe assumed that his brother is going to treat him, or even give him some items to help his adventures. So he went to the location as fast as he could, but he didn't expect to witness a few hundreds of them, leaving him shocked and disbelief. Somewhere in another part of the forest, a lightning strike pierced up to the sky, and this was because of a single player, defeating an epic boss by herself. And this player is none other than Luna, a Moonlight Knight, who has the title of Dazzling Nova, which can only be attained by reaching the top 100 in the region, and she is now stronger, since she just obtained an epic level bracelet, named the Heart of Resilience, giving her a boost in attribute, and it also has a special ability that has a 20% chance to be triggered if the user is experiencing control attacks, giving her a boost in resistance by 20 points. And while she is just standing menacingly, Slayer was sitting at the top of the tree branch again, while being amazed at this player's skills, since this is the first time he saw a player who can solo an epic level boss. Intrigued by this, he asks Double C to look up information on the Moonlight Knight class. So, she did just that, and showed to him that the Moonlight Knight is a hidden class among swordsmen, possessing balance attributes, and all of the Moonlight Knight's attack has both physical and magical attributes. In summary, it has a low entry requirement, with a high ceiling potential. Meanwhile, Luna has noticed like she was being watched, so she was wondering who it was, but her trains of thought was disrupted by a Humpty Dumpty looking motherfucker, trying to scam Luna in order to take the epic item out of her hands, and into their pockets. However, Luna isn't stupid either, so instead of wasting their time trying to scam her, she instead proposed to fight it out of her hands instead. However, this ass face still has the audacity to try bullshitting his way through. He even shoot his shot trying to get her number, but she was not having none of his bullshit, so she provoked them to get her loot if they are confident, which the goons didn't hesitate to do just that. But as soon as they were in range, they soon found out that this chick is a baddie not to be messed with, slicing them up like weed, while making a spectacle out of them, as her starlight slash illuminated the place like a star just descended. Now Eggman realized that he had bitten off more than he could chew. Still, he tries to intimidate Luna using his guild's name to get out of his predicament, so if she kills him now, his guild mates will definitely hunt her. However, Luna has zero fucks to give, so she just slices his ugly face up, and now that was settled, she asked the person who was looking at her from above to get down and face her now, which he did willingly so, and looking at him closer, Luna was caught off guard, since she didn't expect the peeping bastard was a boss-level monster, while Slayer was amazed that she actually spotted him. With this, they were both hesitant in facing each other, since they know fighting each other would be costly and challenging, so it would not be worth it. Surprisingly, as they were thinking what their next move will be, a multitude of players materialized out of nowhere, surrounding them both, and it seems like they were divided into two groups. One side is targeting Luna due to her decapitating the egghead, while the other was a raiding party intent on defeating Slayer, and with no other choice, they knew exactly what to do next, so they simultaneously launched themselves at each other, only to split up at the last second, and went behind the party who was not targeting them, and because of this, the group ignored them, so the two of them successfully escaped. Not long after, both of the parties realized what happened, so they both decided to chase their targets at the same time. Because of this, the two parties crashed on each other unintentionally. Still, they won't move out of the way for no one, so the two groups try to force their way through, but to their surprise, this was a premeditated crime all along, as Luna and Slayer went back and gave them the two-piece, and started violating them on all angles. And seeing such spectacle, the players were in panic, so even if they have allies within the ranks, they started blasting, but this only made things worse, as it caused a domino effect, in which they were fighting each other instead of their own respective targets. Still, the high-level ones survived, and they were hoping that they managed to kill their targets, but to their dismay, it wasn't what they hoped for, and Slayer activated his edge of the hunt, killing them all non-stop, like a perpetual motion killing machine. With this, the number of players he killed amounted to 999. Coincidentally, Luna was still alive, and looking for another player may take some time, so it seems like fighting her is inevitable. So without hesitations they both leaped at each other to end this, and just like that, the system congratulated Slayer for completing the random achievement task. A few moments later, somewhere in the real world, a white-haired girl on a wheelchair is enjoying the view of the sea, and that girl is none other than Luna, and it seems like she is from a wealthy family, considering the fact that she got her made from the Courage Cowardly dog. And her VR headset looks insanely cool, but I digress. Her real name is Bai Xiaoyu, from the Bai family, and the maid is informing her that her parents is calling her for dinner. However, she isn't planning on joining them now, since she just met an interesting boss, so she went to her quarters instead, and wrote a rough estimate about the things she might know about the boss she encountered, so she could defeat that bony son of a bitch. Previous chapter, Wu had saved Slayer, and the others acknowledged him as the final victor of the Storm Cloud Arena. With this victory, he gained massive experience points, instantly leveling up to 15. He also obtained an epic weapon that suited his level and class, the Bloodstained Blade, complete with a vampiric attribute. The commentators found this impressive, as it would be a helpful asset in the next event, and that event is none other than the Storm Cloud Catastrophe. But before he could descend to the player's realm, Wu have warned him to not embarrass her, so if he couldn't kill 1,000 people, he should not bother coming back. As soon as he entered the realm of players, his cheats activated. Being level 15 now, he received a new skill and a random mission, which conveniently aligned with Wu's condition. Fortunately for him, he didn't have to search for players, as the system kept announcing his presence in real time. So, he lets out the most devious violation ever, defeating everyone who approach him. But somehow, as time goes by, the volume of player trying to attack him had lessened, and so he decided to start the hunt for players. And during his search, he encountered Luna, a white-haired girl with a hidden class known as the Moonlight Knight. This class allowed her to defeat an epic-level boss by herself, but because she was alone, a group of troublemakers targeted her to steal her loot. But she wasn't a pushover either, and so she showed them who was the real threat in that situation. And now that she has taken care of the losers, she spotted Slayer who was eavesdropping on her, and so a showdown between them seemed imminent. Unexpectedly, before they could clash, two separate groups emerged on the scene, one targeting Luna, and the other was looking for Slayer. In this chaotic situation, both Luna and Slayer had the same idea, so they simultaneously hid behind the groups who were not targeting them, causing even more confusion. With this, chaos ensues, and they decided to take advantage of it and murk these sons of a bitches. In the end, the two of them are the only one left standing, but they couldn't have that, so they continued the fight, in which Slayer emerged victorious, completing his mission. So, he returned to the monster's realm, while Luna headed back to the real world, and lists a rough estimate about the boss she encountered to defeat him the next time they meet. Now on to the next part. Meanwhile, as Slayer was going through the portal, the random achievement tome detected that he has completed his mission of killing 100 players, and therefore it gave him a reward, a mythical tier item, the enchanted divine earrings, which allows the holder to transform their own race, and after transformation, the holder will gain race-specific appearance, race-specific passive talent, mastery of its language. With this, he was contented to receive a worthy reward for his efforts, since this item has both great applicability and functionality. And then, a system interface popped up, congratulating Slayer for completing the Storm Cloud Catastrophe. And with his amazing performance, the system has settled to reward him 1,000 contribution points, and a crazy amount of experience points, leveling him up to level 21. And with this, he acquired yet another skill, the Rending Burst Blade, which allows him to enhance his next basic attack, dealing 180% of physical damage to the target, while ignoring 20% of the target's physical defense. There's also a 20% chance to inflict the target with bleeding status. Soon after, he stepped out of the portal, which he was greeted by the loud cheers of the countless of crowds, who has seen what he just did. Even the commentators were impressed seeing that he achieves a record of killing 1,000 players. So, it is obvious that he is truly deserving of the title Rising Star of the Storm Cloud. But this amazing accomplishment also garnered the hate of others, which Slayer took notice, as the fucker couldn't look him in the eyes. Not that he has one. Still, he couldn't care less about him, so he redirected his attention toward the baddie in front of him, who was also recognizing his dependability, as he hadn't embarrassed her, which made her quite delighted, resulting in a genuine smile. And now that she sees him to be worthy of her time, she waved her hands, suddenly opening a portal, and told Slayer to follow her, which he did willingly so. And now they entered one of the secret realms, the Blood Moon City's evolutionary blood pool, which confused Slayer upon looking at it, because there is nothing about it in the game he designed, so he was wondering what is really going on. But his train of thought was interrupted by Wii asking him if he had a clue about the reason why. Even though Blood Claw's level was adjusted to the same level as his, he was able to easily defeat others, to which Slayer responded confidently, explaining that he knew the reason, and it was because of bloodline. Just like equipment has different qualities, each monster's attribute varies greatly due to bloodline differences, and his bloodline is the lowest. And seeing that they are talking about bloodlines, Slayer asks if the place they are standing right now is related to breaking through bloodline attributes, to which she responded that it is exactly what he assumed, and this is one of the secret realms under her jurisdiction, and since she acknowledged his worth, he can now pick any area that he would like to jump in. But before that, she reminds him to not get his hopes up, since his evolutions still depend on his luck. Meanwhile, in the Blood Moon City's North Hall, Shuang is having a tantrum, thinking about how Wii just disrespected him in front of a crowd, so his blood keeps on boiling in rage. Still, this wouldn't happen if it weren't for that useless brat from the Lion Clan, fueling his anger even more. And seeing that this might get out of control, one of his advisor that was beside him tries to calm him down, and tells him that he shouldn't be this furious, cause this might not be such a bad thing. After all, the Lion Clan has always intended to be on good terms with him, and through this incident, they saw that he is willing to get hurt to protect their descendants, so he concluded that this will surely strengthen their loyalty towards him. But even after all of that, Shuang admitted to his advisor that he can't swallow his anger, and it's really getting on his nerve of how uncomfortable it is. In response, the advisor offered a suggestion, a more indirect way to provoke Wii. Although they couldn't directly harm her, there were alternative methods. He leaned in, whispering the plan discreetly to Shuang, and upon hearing all of it, a wicked grin spread across Shuang's face, as he decided to proceed with the advisor's plan. A few moments later, Slayer had already dipped himself on the pool of blood, and was now in the process of evolution, while Wu was observing his progress, which she can't help but be fascinated at him, as Slayer's absorption speed is quite fast, and this could only mean that Slayer's potential is quite high. However, her train of thought was disrupted by someone calling out her name, and so she turns around, only to see the City Lord's mansion Black Death Guards, asking her to come with them, since the City Lord has given them an order, summoning her to the main city immediately. Still, she wasn't going to just agree with them that easily, and she is quite busy right now, so she asks them to wait until she is free. However, they are not her underlings, and so they are not planning to follow her as she pleases, and so the captain takes up the City Lord's Blood Summon Decree, and upon the issuance of the Blood Summon Decree, the recipient must immediately present themselves to the City Lord, and those who disobey shall be executed without mercy. With this, she doesn't have a choice but to go with them. But before she leaves Slayer behind, she told a cryptic message, informing him about how there are occasional rock falls in the nearby mountain, so he should look out for that, to avoid getting crushed accidentally. After that, she leaves with the guards. With this, the captain couldn't help himself but smile, as everything is according to their plan. A few moments later, Wii and the guards had completely left Slayer all alone. However, it appeared that the progress of his evolution was about to reach a conclusion, as the blood around him had increased and was now enveloping his entire body. Soon after, he was nowhere to be seen as the blood had completely covered him. But this was also the moment the others had been waiting for, since it is the time when Slayer couldn't cancel his evolution process and is vulnerable to attacks. And so, the lower commander of the Shadow Squad signaled his subordinates to attack, which they didn't skip a beat to do just that. However, Little did they know, Slayer's absorption was faster than they expected, and so he awoken, and was more than willing to school these fools on what skill gap is about. At the same time, Wu Yu and the guards are now hiking up the mountain, which the captain happily grins as he sees a powerful entity like Wu Yu can't do anything but be obedient when she saw the blood summoning order. But to his surprise, Wu Yu suddenly decided to stop following them, and just sit on a rock, and so he asked her what is the meaning of this sudden rest. However, she doesn't feel the need to explain herself to him, as she just enjoyed the view of her blood pool, where few nosy bugs are racing each other to kill Slayer first, in order to get the credit, and so the fastest one has managed to slice where Slayer was resting, and so the spherical blood formation had broken up, and now they just stood there waiting for the remains of their target, but to their surprise, Slayer was still in one piece, which confuses the assassins since they obviously had cut it down, and even the one who did it felt his attack connected. Still, seeing that their target was standing, they didn't hesitate to make sure this motherfucker's deceased, but as soon as they got a closer look on their target, shock fills their eyes, as they realized that Slayer had completed his evolution, and came out smoking hot, and so they are now questioning their sexuality. But even before they could react, Slayer had decapitated them both, while the lower commander was shocked to see he completed his evolution as well. But still, they gotta get things done, and so he commanded his subordinates to attack together, which they immediately did, and with teamwork, they launched a coordinated attack, but Slayer just simply took a step back to dodge it, cause these little dudes were slow as heck, and what's even more surprising is that he had violated them without them even noticing, as Slayer is now on a whole nother level. They didn't even realize they were dead, not until they saw their heart in Slayer's hand, completely shocking them all, but the lower commander can't have that. He can't let that disrespect slide, and so he attacks Slayer with everything that he has, and with each strike, he embeds his blade with a powerful aura that multiplies his strength. However, Slayer is on demon time right now, so he easily dodges them all, and Slayer proved to be a total menace, as he doesn't even take this fight seriously at all. He's even smiling deviously while doing that light-skinned stare. With this, the lower commander realized he was fucked, and now he knows why he was named as a lower commander. He was destined to be a bottom person from the start, and so he easily took some damage from Slayer without resistance, completely tearing off his left arm, leaving him no choice but to step back and think about his life choices, wondering where it all went wrong. All the information given to him about Slayer has misled him, as he realized Slayer ain't a bitch, but Slayer is the one who is called to make someone a bitch. But even if he realized this, he can't just dip out of here. He has to kill Slayer, since this mission was trusted to him by Zhuang, and he is not willing to tarnish his master's name, and so he summoned the other hidden assassin to his aid, to complete their mission with everything on the line, which they fully understood. Therefore they performed a ritual to boost the bottom commander, giving him an immense power that buffed his overall abilities, and he even regenerated a limb because of this, and was now looking to kill Slayer, while Slayer remained calm, as bottom commander is still a bitch in his eyes. And to prove this, he willingly throws himself towards the enemy's range, and as soon as he got close, he reverted back to his skeleton form, which made the commander think Slayer's evolution was failing, in turn making him confident to win this match. And so, he continued to strike, but to his surprise, Slayer easily dodged it. During his enemy's momentum, Slayer took this chance to turn back to his demon form, and decapitate the commander. With this, shock can be shown on the bottom commander's face as he saw his own body without a head. Meanwhile, on the side, Wu Yu applauded Slayer's performance, delighted to see that his harvest went quite smoothly. Slayer then asked if these assassins were from Zhuang, to which she confirmed. Even the guards who took her were connected to Zhuang, but she had already sent them away. With this information, Slayer realized that she knew what their motives were from the start, and so he asked her if this was his second test. However, as he approached her suddenly, the view became more clear. She noticed that he was quite well equipped down there, and so she was looking at it more than she should, which embarrassed Slayer, causing him to hide it from her. Surprisingly, she was quite thirsty and commanded him to take his hands off right this instant. With that settled, she told him that she was quite satisfied with his performance, and so she asked what he wanted, as she could grant him one wish.
Yeah, boy.
But my man is not horny, as he only wants one thing, and that is to know where his brother is. so he asks Wu Yu the whereabouts of Hanny Xiao, which made her sigh as she brought the bad news to him, that he was already gone. In the previous chapter, the protagonist received a mythical tier item, an enchanted divine earring, that allows him to morph at will, and a new skill called Rending Blade, which enhances his attack and debuffs the target with bleeding, and since Wu Yu recognized his worth, she invited him to her secret realm, the Blood Moon City's evolutionary pool, where individuals can break through their own bloodline attributes. However, while Slayer was using the pool, the City Lord's Black Death Guard arrived to summon Wu Yu to the main city immediately, and she couldn't disobey them due to the City Lord's blood summon decree, so she joined the guards and left Slayer alone. However, it turned out to be a setup, as the Shadow Squad ambushed Slayer before he could finish his evolution. Slayer, however, proved to be faster and more skilled than they anticipated, successfully completing his evolution and defeating the assassins effortlessly. After he was done, Wu Yu returned, and revealed that this was all planned by Zhuang, to which Slayer realized she knew about it from the start, so he then concluded that leaving him with the assassins was her second test, which she confirmed, and since she is satisfied with his performance, she was willing to do anything he wishes. But Slayer is a man of focus, commitment and sheer fucking will, and so he asked about the whereabouts of Hanny Xiao. Unfortunately, Wu Yu could only deliver the sad news that his brother was already gone. Now on to the next part. Upon hearing the devastating news, Slayer was so shocked that he fell silent. However, his desire to know what had happened to his brother pushed him to ask Wu Yu for more details. To his surprise, Wu Yu reminded him that this was his second question according to their earlier agreement, but seeing how he was trembling, Wu Yu understood the importance of this matter to him, and so, she agreed to answer his questions but first wanted to know why he was so interested in her previous disciple, to which Slayer explained that it is because he is his big brother, and as he shared this, he began to reminisce about the day he had first met him. In the orphanage, whose name he couldn't recall, children would play every day while hoping to be adopted. Unfortunately, those without parents were often targets of bullying, and so, a group of older teenagers had decided to torment kids like Lu Li and Ah Fei, and it seems they have already been beaten up by these trash of a human being. However, these bullies didn't stop at physical harm, as they discovered that the rabbit they held was the last memento from a poor child's mother. With this, they decided to be even more malicious, taunting Lu Li and Ah Fei over it. Then it was soon revealed that the leader of the bullies was the legitimate son of the orphanage's owner. This entitled trash of a mentality made him believe that he could do anything he pleased, asserting ownership over everything and everyone in the orphanage, as if they were his playthings. This included tearing apart the stuffed rabbit in front of Ah Fei, a cruel act that Lu Li couldn't allow, since he knew that it would deeply hurt Ah Fei if his last memory with his mom got destroyed in front of him. So he was even willing to go John Wick on them, taking out a pencil to kill the bully before they broke Ah Fei's toy. Fortunately for Lu Li, Hanny Xiao suddenly appeared, and beat the living shit out of them with a broom, which the bullies couldn't even fight back, and so they just run away while their tails tucked between their legs. With the bullies gone, Hanny Xiao's warm smile illuminated their world, as if it had transformed from black and white to vibrant color. He then introduced himself and declared his commitment in protecting them from that moment on. With such warm memories of Hanny Xiao in his heart, Slayer expressed that Hanny Xiao is his closest family. This prompted Wu Yu to recall how Hanny Xiao used to ask her for simple equipment, explaining that he had 2 younger brothers and believed it was his duty as the older sibling to provide the best for them. Understanding Slayer's deep connection to his disciple, Wu Yu mentioned a place called Infernal Purgatory, but this just confused Slayer, as he doesn't have a clue to what she said, so he asks to clarify, to which she realized that it would be best to start from the beginning, and so she explained that it all began after Hanny Xiao had successfully defended his title as the Stormcloud King by defeating the King of Knights, Daegu Dan. This extraordinary victory marked Hanny Xiao's 10th consecutive win and firmly established his reputation as a legendary figure. And just like usual, Hanny Xiao entered the Stormcloud catastrophe, but this time was different. He didn't return even though 4 hours had passed, which was odd because the event had already concluded, and according to the usual protocol, participants should be forcibly sent back when the event ends. However, there was no sign of Hanny Xiao. With this, Wu Yu grew increasingly concerned, so she uses everything at her disposal and searched everywhere for him. But even with her efforts, it still took her a long time before she found out that the last place Hanny Xiao entered in was called the Infernal Purgatory. And since she knows the location, Slayer asked why she didn't simply go there to find him, to which Wu Yu explained that she couldn't, as there was an unknown force blocking access to that realm, preventing her from teleporting there or intervening in any way. With this challenge ahead, Slayer racked his brain for a solution, but to no avail, and so he decided to reach out to Double C, asking her to search for relevant information about the Infernal Purgatory. To his dismay, as she attempted to access this information, she started to bug out, and shortly after, a system notification popped up, indicating an error. Faced with this setback, Slayer had no choice but to delve into the database himself, which Double C informed him that he didn't have the necessary privileges. But Slayer doesn't give a fuck. He knew the ins and outs of creating this game, so he was confident in his ability to bypass these restrictions, as he switched to the manual input interface, while Wu Yu on the other hand was just standing there on the side, dumbfounded as she was clueless on what Slayer was mumbling about. And as Slayer entered the secret codes, he made an effort to calm himself down, as he realized that he couldn't afford to be hasty when he is so close to potentially finding his brother. And the timeline of his brother's last appearance in the game and when he went offline seemed to align perfectly, strengthening Slayer's conviction that the Infernal Purgatory held the answers he sought, so he can't afford messing up. Soon after, he bypassed the system, gaining access to the database, which immediately led him in a sea of floating codes. He then opened a system tab to retrieve the code for the Infernal Purgatory. To his surprise, as he entered the word, system errors began to pop up. It even warned him that if he continued, it would be considered an illegal intrusion, and so he would be forcibly ejected from the system. Still, he couldn't accept it, so he commanded the system to open the source code. But to his dismay, this action seemed to worsen everything, as the source code started to be overwritten, which should have been impossible, so this left him dumbfounded. But before he could find answers, he was in the process of being forcibly ejected. And just like that, he returned to where Wu Yu was, and it seems like she didn't notice his sudden disappearance, as she just proceeded with their conversation as if nothing had happened, telling Slayer that what she had said was all she knew, and if he didn't believe her, he should go and find out for himself. So it looked like Slayer didn't have a choice but to go there himself. However, before he did that, he asked Wu Yu if she would be willing to do him another favor, to which she clarified that this would be his third request. So it seemed like he wouldn't get anything more from her for the time being. To his surprise, Wu Yu had a change of heart and permitted him to tell her what it was. Therefore Slayer didn't think twice to ask her for directions on how to get to the other realm. To which she responded that the only method she knew was the Stormcloud catastrophe, which he had just finished, and it had a time restriction involved as well, so it wouldn't be the best method. And since he was her new disciple, Wu Yu expressed some worry about him, pointing out that he was being a bit impatient. Even Hanny Xiao had awakened twice in the evolution blood pool and still couldn't come back, not to mention his current state. However, Slayer couldn't hear her, as he was deep in thought, since he couldn't just stand still when he was so close to finding his brother. Fortunately, he didn't have to figure it out himself, as Double C informed him that she knew a method to return to the other side, and he just needed to follow her. Therefore, Slayer followed Double C. But Wu Yu was clueless about where he was going, since she couldn't hear nor see Double C, so she asked Slayer about it, to which he explained that he had found a way to go to the player's world, but this confused her even more, prompting Slayer to clarify that it was the realm she always called the other side, which immediately piqued her interest, as she wondered how he knew about this, but she could see that Slayer was in a hurry, so she decided to postpone her questions for later and simply waited for good news from him. Meanwhile, in the player's realm, a massive explosion erupted amidst the trees, resulting in the demise of a group of moth-like monsters, and the one responsible for this fiery display was none other than Afe, who had now reached level 23 as a firestorm mage. Along with his fiery prowess, he seemed to have attracted the attention of a few girls who found him hot as well, swarming around him like moths drawn to a flame. And Afe was enjoying the attention he was receiving from the girls, since he is a man of culture after all, and with the girls near him, he was more than happy to feel their soft company. Still, he can't let himself be seen as a pervert, So he shifted the conversation, inquiring if the high-paying equipment merchant they had mentioned earlier was nearby, which the girls confirmed its proximity, and Ah Fei continued his journey enthusiastically, looking forward to meet this merchant they specially recommended. He even promised the girls that he would treat them to new pieces of equipment after completing his transactions. However, as Ah Fei ventured deeper into the woods, he became aware of a group of players blocking his path, and suddenly, players appeared from all directions, surrounding them. It was clear that this group had nefarious intentions, and they even referred to him as their scapegoat. With this, he quickly instructed the girls to stay behind him and prepared his magic. However, to his dismay, the girls he was trying to protect revealed their true colors as they simultaneously backstabbed him, both literally and figuratively. With this, question filled his mind, as to why these girls did him dirty like that. He was even so considerate to give them items and split the money, so their betrayal doesn't make sense to him. However, his questions were swiftly answered in the most unexpected manner, as he overheard the girls being referred to as brother by their guildmates. To his astonishment, it turned out that these three apparent beauties from the North Guild were, in fact, guys in real life all along. This revelation filled Ah Fei with anger, not because of the betrayal of his wealth, but because it was about the betrayal of his trust and feelings, and this newfound motivation compelled him to stand up once more and teach these deceivers a lesson they wouldn't forget. But even before Ah Fei could launch his counterattack, his enemies decided to make the first move, lunging at him. However, Ah Fei proved to be faster than they had anticipated, and so they received a fiery fist that knocked them both down. Suddenly more players were charging at him from behind, but Ah Fei managed to defeat them with a powerful area of effect fire attack. Nevertheless, facing an entire guild in a one versus many situation, he was destined to take some damage, as he didn't see an arrow aimed towards him. Still, he got an insane reaction speed, so he manages to block it in the nick of time. But the battle was far from over, as the cat lady closed in on him, aiming for the kill, but Ah Fei blocked her attack with his abilities. However, it became clear that his mana was running dangerously low, and the problem was, he had already used all of his potions while leveling earlier, and he even gave some of them to those ladyboys, so it was only a matter of time before he would be defeated. And seeing that he was now on the edge, the enemies made it clear that they were after the equipment he had obtained from the limited-time boss. So, before he could do anything stupid, they warned him that their guild had already surrounded the area, and if he didn't cooperate, they would guard his corpse until he dropped the last piece of equipment he had. This was a well-thought-out plan on their part, as characters who died in the wilderness would revive with low health in the same spot after some time, and they would also randomly drop their equipped items and lose some of their experience points upon death. Frustrated, Ah Fei let out a deep sigh, before proceeding to mock every member of their guild, insulting them with every insult he had learned since birth. Even the birds couldn't handle the bars that came out from his mouth. With this, the white-haired dude was immediately triggered, and so he was about to kill Ah Fei on the spot, while Ah Fei on the other hand, couldn't do anything but apologize to his second brother for not protecting the wealth he had entrusted to him. He was deeply regretful for being deceived by scammers. But just before the white-haired guy's attack could land, a shadow abruptly materialized at his rear, and it seemed like Ah Fei was about to receive a double blow. However, to everyone's surprise, the new arrival was actually targeting the white-haired guy, dealing a fatal blow that killed him instantly, and this mysterious figure turned out to be none other than Slayer, who had transformed into a human using his earrings, and Slayer was seething with anger at the way these players had bullied his brother, and so, he looks at them with his devious side eye, and vowed that not a single one of them would leave that place unscathed. Slayer had received devastating news about his brother's disappearance. Despite not being blood-related, the bond between them was strong, and this revelation hit Slayer hard, so he turned to Uyu for an explanation. To which Uyu told him that it all happened after Hanny Zhao's 10th victory in the Stormcloud tournament. And just as usual, Hanny Xiao then participated in the Stormcloud catastrophe, but this time was different, as he didn't return, and so Uyu initiated a search, but despite using all available resources, it took her a considerable amount of time to discover that Hanny Zhao's last known location was the internal purgatory, and the problem was that she couldn't access this mysterious realm due to an unknown force blocking her. With this news, Slayer had no option but to summon Double C for assistance. But to his dismay, even Double C started to malfunction as she tried to search for more information about the place. Therefore, Slayer decided to delve into the database himself. Using his secret codes, he bypassed the database, and then he attempted to retrieve information about the internal purgatory. However, this action triggered errors in the system, and even when he tried to open the source code to counter the issue, things only worsened, as an unknown force began overriding the codes, ultimately forcing him out of the system. So, it looks like he doesn't have a choice but to go to the infernal purgatory himself. But the challenge now was that he had no idea how to reach the player's realm on his own. Fortunately, Double C knew the way, and so he decided to follow her guidance immediately. Meanwhile, Slayer's brother, Afe, found himself deceived by what he thought was his harem of admirers, as he discovered that these individuals, whom he believed were women, were, in fact, guys in real life, and they tricked him because they wanted to steal his items that he got from the boss. But Afe was not willing to let these imposters have their way, since the items were a gift from his brother, so he was determined to defend them. So, he gave everything he got to retaliate, but the odds were stacked heavily against him from the start. Taking on an entire guild single-handedly was an impossible feat, and he soon found himself on the brink of defeat. His enemies were even prepared to wait for him to respawn after death so they could kill him repeatedly, causing all his inventory items to drop upon each death. However, their plans were about to be disrupted, as Slayer arrived on the scene, and he was more than pissed to witness that his brother is being bullied by these trash. So Slayer declared that no one would leave this place unharmed. Now on to the next part. Seeing Slayer's new face, Afe immediately recognized him, which instantly lit his eyes up as he soon realized he was saved. Meanwhile, Slayer questioned how Afe managed to get into such a mess in such a short time, but since he was spoiled by his brother so much, Afe dramatically explains his circumstances to his brother, which he tells Slayer that it was their fault, not him, and not only they have robbed him of his equipment but also his pure and sincere feelings. But this outlandish explanation just left Slayer speechless. While this cute interaction unfolded, the three men were wary of Slayer's presence, as they had heard much about this big brother of Afe's, whom he often talked about. Still, it also means that he is very rich like Afe, so their eyes glowed with greed, as they were more excited than scared in Slayer's presence. With this realization, they called out to their guild members to come out, while Afe gets ready to defend their rear. But as time passes by, they noticed no one was responding to their calls, making the trio wonder what's taking them so long. So they turn around, only to find out that everyone has already been violated, and was sprawled on the ground lifeless, without them even noticing, which instantly left them puzzled, baffled, flabbergasted, and mostly confused. As they attempted to make sense of the situation, Afe took this opportunity to get his well-deserved revenge, instantly appearing behind them, to scare them shitless. However, they have the audacity to revert back to acting like girls, trying their best to get themselves out of the situation. They claimed it was all just a practical joke, but Afe isn't a fool.
Silence, wench. I do not wish to be horny anymore. I just want to be happy.
Now that they have defeated the catfishes and their northward guild, they decided to make their way back to the city. As they walked, Afe couldn't contain his curiosity any longer, as he wondered why his brother had come looking for him. So he asked Slayer if he made any progress on their older brother's matter, prompting Slayer to explain about the infernal purgatory, which brought a smile to Afe's face. He was filled with hope and enthusiasm. However, Slayer couldn't share his brother's excitement entirely, as worry clouded his eyes because he knew that this upcoming mission wasn't cause for celebration, since he can only speculate that the place they are going to raid is a high-level one, and based on their current strength, it is simply beyond their reach. Still, Afe remained cheerful, as he was confident that his brother had already figured out a plan. So, he enthusiastically assured Slayer that he would follow his second brother's lead without hesitation, which is why they are now heading to the nearby town, to pawn off all the weapons and equipment they got, while Slayer endured Afe's chatterbox nature, worthy of being the little brother. A few moments later, they had arrived at the southern suburbs, Mikendi Town, where tons of players had gathered, and as they walked through the town, Slayer was relieved to see that he was finally back in the game that he was familiar with, and he even got that unspoken riz, as he kept receiving friend requests left and right. Still he rejected it, since he was a man of focus after all, while his little brother on the other hand, still haven't learned his lesson as he still try to bag a virtual girlfriend even though he knows that they might be a guy in real life. A few steps more, they had arrived at the equipment recycling stall where an old man who looks like so bored of his job greeted them, but as soon as he saw what Slayer wanted to recycle, his demeanor changed. Interest filled his eyes, as he sees so many elite and premium grade equipment all at once, which he then gave them a price of 95,000 gold coins for it, making Afei's eyes filled with excitement, because according to the current exchange rate of game currency, this is equivalent to tens of thousands of real cash. Unexpectedly, Slayer suddenly complimented the shopkeeper's hairstyle, calling it handsome, which really made him happy, and you could tell, it really brightens up his whole week. And just like that, a system notification popped up, congratulating him for successfully triggering the recycling trader's Easter egg, increasing their recycling price for their current transaction by 10%. This shocked Afei as he was not expecting such a thing exist, so he asks Slayer for clarification, to which he explains to him that this one was because of the programmer's little hobbies when designing Easter eggs, since he can't change his baldness, so he just decided to change the world that he helped create. And with this, they received over 100,000 gold, completing the achievement called Tons of Wealth, which Afei was proudly wore the title, garnering the attention of everyone who saw it, while Slayer on the other hand felt embarrassed seeing his little bro act like this. However, they still have so many pieces of equipment left, so Afei asks his brother if they aren't going to sell them, to which he clarifies that they are, and that they just haven't reached the right place to sell them yet. A few moments later, they have arrived at the front of a luxurious massive building, the auction hall, where tons of players have gathered outside, trying to get in. However, it seems like the players were growing impatient as the lines kept on getting longer, and they have already wasted too much time just lining up. But still, the guard weren't fazed by the increasing number of impatient players, as they were too sassy to be bothered, as they were known for their strict criteria for admission, and they weren't about to make exceptions for anyone. This became apparent when a player approached the guards with a polite request, explaining to them that he was just a few hundred gold coins short of meeting the admission requirement and pleaded with them to make an exception, emphasizing that there was an essential piece of equipment he needed in the upcoming auction. However, to his disappointment, the guards not only rejected his plea but also humiliated him outright, calling him a broke bitch before dismissing him. The other players weren't any more sympathetic. Already frustrated with the long line, they resented the player who had held them up, viewing him with disdain for what they saw as a waste of their time. Still, he tried his best to smile. Luckily for him, Slayer and Afei appeared, and told the guards that he is with them, which the guards were questioning their identity at first, but as soon as they saw Afei's title, they immediately went over to the side, opening the door for them, and welcomed them kindly, as they deemed them to be a VIP. Surprising everyone who witnessed it. With this, they entered the lobby of the auction hall, and it was adorned with extravagant chandeliers, marble floors, and a plush red carpet, exuding an elegance unlike any other place they had ever been. And since the short king had other things to do, he expressed his gratitude to his benefactors, and assured them that he would find a way to repay their kindness in the future, which made Slayer and Afei pleased to see the one they have helped as a grateful, well-mannered young man. And so they happily bid each other farewell. Then, a lady wearing a full-body net stocking, just like the ones the guards wear, appeared before them, and greeted Afei kindly, and introduced herself as their guide for their visit, and they can call her the Eight of Hearts of the auction hall. And in accordance with his Tons of Wealth title, they have automatically prepared a black gold card for him, which has 3 features. First, it allows the holder to enter without queuing. Second, when selling items in the auction house, the commission is reduced from 10% to 5%. Third, they can use this card to get a loan from the auction house, which the loan limit is determined by their credit limit. Still, Afei's horniness knew no bounds as he asked their guide if the VIP card also included the benefit of entering the space in her heart, which completely caught her off guard. But this game isn't like that, so his riz was completely off the mark, while Slayer, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed witnessing his little brother's descent into insanity. Nonetheless, he just took a deep sigh, as he knew he couldn't do anything. Unexpectedly, someone familiar walked by him, catching his attention. However, her walking speed appeared to be too fast for Slayer to keep up with, as she was now out of sight, and their guide had already shown them the way to the private room, so Slayer didn't look for her further. A few moments later, they are now seated comfortably. Eight of Hearts handed them their tea and began briefing Slayer and Ah-Fei on what to expect in the upcoming auction, telling them that they will begin auctioning their equipment immediately, as epic equipments are in high demand at the moment, so they can expect that all of the auctions will be closed within an hour. And as for the epic-grade lightsaber of theirs, the Stardust, it is regarded as one of the top-ranked weapons of all time. So, she will submit it to the ultimate auction, and they will definitely get a good price for it. And if they have time, she suggested that they can also take part in the auction as well, since they may come across something that interests them. Still, they haven't got an answer out of her yet, so he immediately asks their guide if she would be also coming with them, since there is so much that he doesn't know about her that he would definitely like to know. However, this actions of Ah-Fei was too much even for Slayer, as their reputation would plummet if things keep going like this, and therefore, Slayer gave him a piece of his mind, smacking Ah-Fei's head to control that uncontrollable horniness of his. And now that was settled, he gave their guide the list of items they require, in order to collect them in an hour, which she understood. A few moments later, the auction has started, and so the auctioneer for this event introduced himself as Jack of Diamonds, and he was more than happy to start the auction, since the item that they have for them today are all priceless, and only they can decide their worth. He also hopes that every guest present will be able to walk away from today's auction with the items their hearts desires. Hearing his opening remarks, the players give him a round of applause, which the auctioneer was thankful for, but that was enough of formalities for today, as he launched into the main event, commencing with the first treasure up for auction, the Roaring Heart of Flame. This gem was designed for embedding in weapons, imbuing them with powerful fire attributes. It was particularly effective against wood-type monsters. The opening bid for this remarkable gem was set at 20,000 gold, in which participant number 78 quickly raised it to 25,000. Then, another bidder pushed it to 28,000. However, the real showdown occurred when participant number 36 boldly surged ahead, raising the bid to an impressive 35,000 gold. He even has a confident grin across his face, while asserting that no one should dare to snatch this coveted item from him, as he had firmly set his sights on it. However, behind his grin, lurked a sly personality, as he knew that 35,000 gold was all he had, so he couldn't afford to prolong the bidding, and raising a substantial amount was his strategy to scare away other bidders. And this is only the first auction item, so he was more than confident that there shouldn't be anyone who was willing to pay any higher than him. And just as he presumed, the auctioneer started counting to seal the deal, but to their surprise, participant number 9 raised the bid to 50,000 in the last second, completely shocking everyone, because even if the item was valuable, it isn't worth that kind of amount. Even the previous transactions for such an item only went for around 28,000, so they are more curious to know the identity of this rich man. But this guy doesn't care about them, as he was busy simping for his virtual girlfriend, and just like that, the item was sold to number 9. With this turn of events, guest number 36 couldn't help but feel disappointed, as he had set his heart on acquiring that particular item. However, he knew there was little he could do, as he had been bidding against the infamous Han Xiao, a crypto magnate, so he'd just have to look for another Roaring Heart of Flame next auction. Meanwhile, Ah-Fei was growing increasingly irritated as he observed Han Xiao, unaware that he was actually looking at his own reflection. Nevertheless, the auction was just beginning, so they proceeded to unveil the second item, a special costume known as the Loving Maid, which can transform the wearer into a genuine maid. The starting bid was set at 30,000 gold. Surprisingly, several participants eagerly joined the competition, driving the final bid up to 48,000 gold, with guest number 66 emerging as the victor. Unfortunately for them, the winner was so eager to put it on immediately, so number 66 decided to wear it in front of everyone, shocking everyone who witnessed number 66 undress and equip the maid outfit in front of their very eyes. Even Slayer and Ah-Fei was left speechless, as they witness how this game has a really high degree of freedom. With that matter settled, they resumed the auction by presenting the third item, the Lone Wolf's boots. These boots gave the wearer a 2% chance of entering Excel mode when moving. Although the starting price was set at 40,000 gold, Han Xiao had different plans, as he outright doubled the price, raising it to 80,000, surprising everyone once again. Because of this, they have collectively decided that if Han Xiao wants it, they would just let him. However, they were unprepared for Han Xiao's extravagant spending spree as he continued to dominate and win every subsequent auction item, while he was doing the chick he's with, indirectly calling everyone a lonely broke bitch, which discouraged the remaining guests. And so they started to leave the auction, as they couldn't even bid on anything, and it goes to show that money really lets one do anything they want. On the other hand, Fei was more irritated with Han Xiao than ever, as he couldn't help but wonder why he felt this way, but it was tempting him to throw a punch at Han Xiao, to which Slayer told him not to, since they will also need Han Xiao's help for their item that's coming right up. And just as Slayer had predicted, the auction was now approaching its climax, and the final treasure to be unveiled was the most valuable of them all, the lightsaber Stardust. This extraordinary item not only granted a significant boost in stats but also possessed 3 rare traits. Its most remarkable feature was its ability to unleash extremely rare light attribute attacks, and in the main storyline quests, particularly those from levels 25 to 30, light-based attacks were essential, so it is not an exaggeration to call it the cream of the crop of all currently available weapons. The starting price for this item was set at 200,000 gold. Surprisingly, Han Xiao didn't follow his previous pattern of doubling the price. Instead, he modestly raised it to 250,000, as he was confident that none of these idiots would dare to challenge him now, since he planned this all along, a game where he placed to sacrifice a small expense to make big gains. To his astonishment, another participant boldly raised the bid to 300,000, leaving Han Xiao with no choice but to counter with 350,000. However, his competitor wasn't backing down and promptly pushed it to 400,000. With this, Han Xiao started to feel the pressure. Not only was this bidder determined, but he was also unfamiliar to Han Xiao, and this also raised his suspicions as he had no information about his opponent. Nevertheless, he decided to raise the bid once more, this time to 450,000, but yet again, his opponent countered with a staggering 500,000. This was a considerable sum, even for Han Xiao. So, he began to contemplate whether it was wise to continue bidding, given that, despite the item's exceptional qualities, it was still an early-game weapon. However, Han Xiao was soon reminded of why he had started bidding in the first place. It wasn't just about acquiring the items. What he truly craved was the exhilaration of winning a high-stakes gamble. With his final bid, he aimed to reach the pinnacle of this cliff overlooking the crashing shores of excitement. Therefore, Han Xiao boldly raised the bid to 600,000, to which Fei was ready to contest this. But fortunately, Slayer intervened, and just like that, the auctioneer began counting down to seal the deal, while Han Xiao felt a rush of euphoria, convinced that he had emerged victorious in this competition. But to their surprise, another contestant suddenly raised the price to 1 million, catching everyone off guard. This unexpected bidder turned out to be Luna, who maintained her calm demeanor, as if she hadn't just dropped the most disrespectful timing ever. And with this, the auction had ended. After a few moments, Slayer and Fei left the place. As they walked, Fei couldn't contain his excitement, realizing that making money could be so much fun. Even Slayer couldn't help but smile at his little brother's enthusiasm. However, the last 1 million was indeed unplanned income. So, with a total of 1,520,000, minus the 200,000 spent buying various items, they still had 1,320,000 left. After they received the money, the number on the card only changed from 8988 to 7450, which shocked Fei, because this meant that there were 7,450 people in this region who were richer than them, revealing the presence of numerous crypto tycoons playing the game. Nevertheless, Slayer reassured him not to worry about such things and reminded him that they should focus on the main story for now, to which Fei was delighted to follow this advice. However, it seems like they had caught the attention of Luna, as she observed them from afar. In the previous chapter, Slayer reunited with his younger brother, Fei, and shared with him the whereabouts of their missing brother. However, they realized they were still too underpowered to venture to that location, so it became evident that they needed to increase their strength first. To achieve this, they needed a significant amount of money, so they decided to head to the nearest village and entered the auction house to sell their looted equipment. They even participated in the bidding to manipulate the prices to reach its highest price possible. Unexpectedly, Luna was also present at the auction, hoping to regain her sword, and the fact that she is filthy rich. She easily raised the bidding to $1 million, astonishing everyone present. This impressive outcome left Slayer and Ah-Fei feeling invigorated as they left the auction house with high spirits, but this also managed to catch the attention of Luna as she observed them from afar. Now on to the next part. Slayer and Ah-Fei had left Niken Town behind and were now en route to Bush Coal Village. During their journey, Ah-Fei attempted to strike up a small conversation with his brother, suggesting that they should have a barbecue later tonight, since they haven't had a meal outside for quite some time. However, Slayer remained silent and suddenly came to a halt. This left Ah-Fei perplexed, but before he could react, Slayer loudly addressed the person who had been following them, urging the mysterious person to reveal herself, which she complied, and to Ah-Fei's surprise, it was indeed the girl from the auction house who had been trailing them, which Ah-Fei quickly connected the dots, realizing why she had been so willing to pay such a high price, and that she is just a thief all along, planning to steal back the money she had given them, which instantly flustered Luna. Still, she immediately clarifies to avoid confusion, telling them that it is not like what he assumed. She doesn't have bad intentions. She is only tailing them, because the lightsaber they auctioned was her dropped equipment from before, and so she was merely curious about how they had acquired the weapon. To which Ah-Fei responded with disbelief, stating that what Luna was saying was ridiculous. The lightsaber wasn't her weapon. It was something his second brother had acquired by defeating a time-limited boss. This brought shock to Luna's face as she was unable to believe that someone had managed to kill a boss she couldn't defeat. With this, she instantly approached them and politely asked Slayer for a practice duel. Ah-Fei was bewildered by her sudden request, but Slayer understood her intentions. He, however, had no interest in entertaining her and promptly refused, while Ah-Fei remained skeptical, thinking that Luna might be like the 3 girls he had encountered earlier, pretending to be a woman in the game, but actually a guy in real life who would backstab them when the opportunity arose. But in reality, all Luna wanted was to know who was the stronger one between her and Slayer. After that fateful encounter, Slayer and Ah-Fei continued their journey to the Bush Coal Village. As they drew closer, Ah-Fei asked his brother for some tips. Knowing they'd arrive soon, Slayer was glad to provide information. He explained that the difficulty level of the village wasn't very high because it was built in the early stages of the game's development. And the storyline of the village went roughly like this. The hamlet known as the Bush Coal Village was under attack and surrounded by monsters from all sides. Their initial task upon entering the village was to clear out the monsters threatening it. Once inside, the villagers would reveal the reason behind the attacks. A little girl within the village possessed a body containing holy light, making her a treasure coveted by the monsters. Consequently, they would receive a mission to safely deliver the girl to the Temple of Holy Light. On the way, they would encounter a few waves of enemies, but as long as they delivered the girl safely to their destination, the Temple of Holy Light, their mission would be complete. Ah-Fei deeply appreciated this information. He felt that with his second brother by his side, it was as if they had cheats in the game, as they knew in advance what would happen. And just like that, they have arrived at the village. But before they could enter, Ah-Fei noticed something unusual. So, he instructed his brother to stay put while he cleared the path ahead, and just watch as he put on a showy performance. And so, Ah-Fei charged vigorously at 2 pig-like ladies who were minding their own business, instantly scaring them. They then closed their eyes and screamed for help, which confused Ah-Fei, since monsters like them shouldn't be acting this way. So, he stopped his advances and asked who they were. In response, they revealed that they were the villagers of this village. Then they turned the question back on him, asking who he was instead. With this, Ah-Fei realized his mistake and apologized for the confusion, explaining that he had attacked because he was here to eliminate the monsters as part of their mission. Hearing his explanation, their demeanor instantly changed. They realized that they had finally met the fabled adventurer right before their eyes, which instantly rizzed them up, and so they eagerly clung to Ah-Fei. and willingly show him the way to their village. While Afe was pleased with this outcome and couldn't believe how warm-hearted the villagers were. On the other hand, Slayer got no bitches, but this wasn't the reason why he has a bothered expression. The true reason is that the villagers weren't human as intended, and are all pigmen instead. However, he understood that an immediate reaction wouldn't get them anywhere, so he remained silent and decided to investigate on the side. And so they continued their walk to the village, and as they did this, they were greeted with warm praise and enthusiasm from the villagers. The villagers hailed them as legendary adventurers who would free their village from the monsters. They even offered to show them the village's best produce, and the young ones were equally excited, and even the village chief made a grand entrance just to greet them, and then encouraging the villagers to cheer and applaud the newly arrived adventurers. However, all this seemed contradictory to what Slayer had explained earlier to Afe. So Afe asked his brother if it was possible that someone from the Destiny Corporation had altered the mission, to which Slayer replied that it was highly impossible. While the story and the villagers' appearances could be changed, the key characters and their lines couldn't be altered, and therefore, this left them wary of the situation they found themselves in. Nevertheless, they hadn't yet received the mission, so they allowed the villagers to continue their warm welcome. The villagers extended their hospitality by organizing a banquet, which the villagers were eagerly looking forward to, and so the villagers led them to the banquet location. And during the walk, Slayer seized the opportunity to inquire if he could see the purple medic flowers. He mentioned hearing that they were blooming splendidly in the village, but the villagers seemed hesitant, giving the impression that they wanted the adventurers to attend the banquet first. However, this only deepened Slayer's suspicions, as it was now fucking evident that they are up to no good. Shortly after, the banquet began, and the pigmen were enthusiastically indulging in their food, savoring every bite as if it were their last meal. They seemed insatiable.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
That is cannibalism right there. But somehow, they do not care, gorging themselves like a maniac. Even Afe found himself succumbing to the tantalizing aroma, and his stomach rumbled with hunger, as the in-game food appeared even more enticing than what they had in the real world, and he had heard that the game simulated their sense of taste to perfection, so he contemplated grabbing a bite for himself. However, his appetite was quickly extinguished when he witnessed one of the villagers eating a bowl filled with eyes as if they were gummy bears. Disturbed by this sight, Afe and Slayer decided to locate the mission NPC, but the village was teeming with inhabitants, making it challenging to identify the correct person. So Afe asked if they needed to approach every single villager to inquire. In response, Slayer assured him there was no need for that, as they could spot the mission NPC if they observed carefully. With that, Slayer approached an individual who stood out from the rest, quietly attempting to blend into the crowd. However, she held an apple, instead of the countless servings of meat on the table. Therefore, it was no doubt that she was the NPC they are looking for, and so Slayer immediately asks if she wished to go to the Temple of Holy Light, which instantly filled her eyes with relief, as this adventurer was the one she had been eagerly awaiting, the one that can save her from this nightmare. And with this, they had successfully triggered Mission 2. Following this, the once casual atmosphere took a dark turn. The moon suddenly turned menacingly red, and the loud sound of the pigmen feasting ceased abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake, and it became clear that something was amiss. Confirming their earlier suspicions, the pigmen began to snarl viciously, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust, and they were now closing in from all sides. In a sudden twist, the pigmen let out agonizing screams, as if something was filling them from the inside. Their eyes rolled back, and their bodies transformed, bulging with newfound muscles as if they'd been infused with some kind of steroids. Then they immediately launched an attack on Slayer's group from both sides. Unfortunately for them, the brothers' combat skills far surpassed their attackers, and so they dispatched the pigmen with just a single powerful blow, taking them completely by surprise. With this, the pigmen realized that their only hope was to overwhelm the brothers with sheer numbers, and so they swarmed in. But Slayer and Afe remained unfazed, meeting them head-on. With this, the sounds of their intense struggle reverberated through the surroundings, yet even against overwhelming odds, Slayer and Afe emerged victorious. Much to their surprise, the battle was far from over, as the dismembered pigmen's corpses started to glow with mana, and to the brothers' astonishment, they began to regenerate. Before long, the once slain pigmen were standing there, hale and hearty, as if nothing had happened. In this perplexing situation, Ah-Fei turned to his brother, seeking a strategy. Unfortunately, even Slayer couldn't provide a clear answer. It defied all logic, because the pig-headed people should not have such an ability to revive. And whatever's happening here is completely different from the original design. So he found himself wondering what had transpired within Destiny Corporation after his departure. However, dwelling on these thoughts wouldn't provide any solutions for their current predicament, but he was certain of one thing: their stamina was limited. Therefore, they couldn't keep fighting these relentless foes. So, they chose a tactical retreat, leaping through windows and dashing down narrow streets until they found refuge in an empty building. However, it quickly became apparent that they weren't alone in the building. As Ah-Fei was about to voice out, a hand suddenly appeared, silencing him, and the hand belonged to Luna herself. This startled Ah-Fei, while Slayer had already pointed her blade at her. However, it seemed like she had no intention of fighting them, as she gestured for them to remain quiet. As the monsters hadn't left the vicinity, with her intentions made clear, she instructed them to continue their conversation upstairs, which they willingly did. As they settled into their temporary hideout upstairs, Luna explained her presence. She emphasized that, just like them, she was here to complete the mission. She wanted to make it clear that she wasn't spying on them again, and that she had actually arrived in the village earlier than them. However, upon entering, she immediately sensed that something was amiss. This suspicion prompted her to remain and conduct a proper investigation, choosing to wait until nighttime to do so. It was at this point that Slayer and Ah-Fei had unknowingly walked in when she was just about to venture outside. Surprisingly, Slayer concurred with Luna's assessment, acknowledging that there were indeed too many peculiarities in this place, and so he turns to the girl and asks if she has any idea what happened before they had arrived here. However, it appeared that the little girl was reluctant to answer their questions. Luna, sensing the little girl's doubts, she accompanied her words with a warm smile, reassuring her, as she emphasized that their purpose here was to protect her, so she can rest assured and share whatever she knows with them. With this, she was convinced, and so she decided to show them the truth, taking her masks off, and began to recount the unsettling events that had transpired in the village. The Bush Village had once been a safe and unassuming place. The villagers were a close-knit, warm-hearted community. However, outside the village, there were often pig-headed people, peculiar creatures that had occasionally roamed nearby. According to an elder who frequently left the village, these creatures weren't particularly dangerous as long as they were spotted early, and you kept a wide distance from them. Over time, the villagers discovered that these pig-headed creatures not only refrained from attacking people but even started mimicking everyone's movements, which the villagers initially found their behavior rather humorous, and consequently, their vigilance against these monsters gradually relaxed. That was until the day a patrolling knight from the Temple of Holy Light visited the village. The knight was Ser Kurlik, a very strong and gentle individual who had made quite an impression on the village, and under the guidance of Ser Kurlik, they all gave a prayer. Only this prayer was different from the others, as she felt her body getting hotter and hotter, and pain as though she was being pricked by something. Troubled by this, she approached Ser Kurlik, seeking an explanation for her unusual experience. And when she shared her ordeal with Ser Kurlik, a smile gradually illuminated his face. He eagerly told her that she had experienced a one-in-a-million event as she had been awakened and chosen by the Holy Light. With this, she could join the Temple of Holy Light and become one of them. Furthermore, their village would gain the protection of the temple, ensuring that they would never have to worry about monster attacks again. But just as she was about to share this exhilarating news with everyone, the monsters launched a sudden and brutal attack. They were vicious, cruel, and numerous, and no matter what they did, the monsters wouldn't die, and so the villagers were all captured, and tragically, Ser Kurlik lost his life while trying to protect them. Overwhelmed and terrified by the horrific events she had witnessed, she found herself paralyzed with fear. She dared not call for help or make an attempt to escape. Her mind went blank, and in her numb state, all she could do was weep. However, after crying for an indeterminate amount of time, her tears eventually ceased. She began to think that perhaps it was the Holy Light itself comforting her and urging her to be strong. With this newfound resolve, she became convinced that she had a responsibility to see things through. After all, the holy light had chosen her for a reason. That's why she decided to don the mask and pretend to be one of the monsters, patiently waiting for an opportunity to escape, as she felt compelled to share the truth of what had transpired with the Temple of Holy Light, to ensure that the holy light would once again shine upon their village. This revelation left both Luna and Slayer puzzled as they pondered the root cause of the pigmen's unusual behavior. But before they could arrive at any conclusions, Ah-Fei stepped in to comfort the girl, assuring her that she didn't need to rely on the temple because he and his second brother would handle the situation. This reassured the girl, and so she finally let out a smile. However, the menacing red moon they had seen earlier had transformed into a sinister eye, glaring at them intensely through the window, and before they could react, the building was suddenly breached, and the girl was now in the clutches of a massive boar that loomed over them as if they were ants, while releasing a menacing laugh as it reveled in capturing the little girl. Slayer and Ah-Fei had arrived at the Bushcole village, where they are supposed to clear the monsters near the village to enter it, and once they enter, the villagers will reveal the reason why they are being attacked, which would be that there is a little girl in the village who possesses a body containing holy light. Consequently, they will receive a mission to safely deliver the girl to the Temple of Holy Light. However, as soon as they arrived at the village, everything they had anticipated were all wrong, as the villagers are now pigmen, and somehow, even the key characters and their lines and dialogue had completely changed, which was impossible. With this, they were sure that something was amiss, but since they haven't encountered the NPC that will give them the mission, they decided to follow along. To their surprise, once they have distinguished the said NPC, all the pigmen transformed into a berserk state, and somehow, the pigmen also seem to be immortal, which they shouldn't have such ability. So staying to fight these monsters isn't a smart decision, so they decide to do a tactical retreat, finding refuge in an empty building. To their surprise, Luna was already in the building, but given their shared predicament, they decided to team up. However, they were unsure of their next steps without understanding why the village had undergone such a bizarre transformation, so they turned to the girl they had rescued, to which she revealed that the villagers were originally human, but the pigmen had attacked and replaced them once they discovered she was chosen by the holy light. After hearing this tragic story, Ah-Fei tried to comfort her, which she appreciated quite so. Unexpectedly, a giant boar had found her, which it didn't hesitate to abduct her on the spot. Even the brothers and Luna wasn't fast enough to react. Now on to the next part. The group was caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, but it seems like the giant boar isn't planning on killing the girl just yet, as it only holds her up high while it continued to laugh menacingly. But Slayer and his companions were not about to let these monsters have their way, and if the girl were to die, the mission would fail, and likely it will affect the world as well, and so they didn't hesitate to attack the giant boar, charging all together to beat the living daylights out of it. However, the boar's enormous size wasn't just for show, as it absorbed their combined attacks with ease and effortlessly swept them aside with a simple swipe of its hand. What's more, like the other pigmen, it healed from its wounds at an astonishing rate, while it revealed a wicked smile as it taunted Slayer's group. Seeing how this unfolded in front of them, the group searched for a way to restrain the boar or find some weakness to exploit, but the boar was relentless, and wouldn't just let them take a second to think, as it attacked them with a crushing downward smash that obliterated the building they had been standing on. Luckily, they were fast enough to dodge the attack, and just before the boar could strike again, Slayer called out to his little brother to cover him while he prepared something, which Ah-Fei understood the plan quite well, so he executed the flashiest attack he had in his arsenal, charging at the boar head-on, while making it so that all its attention is only to him, unleashing his fiery comet skill, bombarding the beast with a barrage of fireballs, while Slayer stealthily maneuvered to the boar's blind spot. And due to Ah-Fei's relentless attacks, the boar grew increasingly agitated, so even though it still held the girl in its hand, it didn't think twice to attack Ah-Fei with the same hand. However, it was still all according to plan, as Slayer appeared in front of it, and used his rending explosive blade to slice open the boar's hand. With this, the girl is now within sight, and so Slayer reached out to save her. However, this boar had a few tricks up its sleeve, as it could spawn underlings within its body, and these new pigmen launched a surprise attack on Slayer. Fortunately, Luna was there to help defend Slayer's rear. With Luna covering him, Slayer could focus on rescuing the girl. But just when they thought they had the upper hand, the boar's arm, on which they were standing on, began to crumble, as it turns out that the boar cleverly decided to transform the entirety of its arm into pigmen, taking them by surprise once again. But now it was evident to Slayer that this colossal boar was, in fact, an amalgamation of all the pigmen, and defeating such a formidable foe is too high of a difficulty for an early mission like this. Therefore, Luna finally realized that slaying this boss wasn't the primary objective of the mission. Instead, their key task was to safely deliver the girl to her intended destination. And now that they are at the same page, they decided to focus on rescuing the girl. In the meantime, they left Ah-Fei to deal with the pursuing crowd of pigmen, which he understood. In response, he unleashed a devastating explosion, one that even Megumin would be proud of if she witnessed it. And with their roles clarified, Slayer and Luna concentrated on tracking down the pig that held the girl. Much to their surprise, this pig turned out to be not only nimble but also quite intelligent, as it abruptly altered its course, leading them into a nearby building, which Slayer and Luna wasted no time in pursuing it. However, upon entering the room, they found that the pig had already dashed to the opposite side. This made Slayer realize that capturing it would be a significant challenge. Not only was it swift, but it is also very familiar with the layout of its environment. But before they could continue the pursuit, he noticed that Luna's attention was drawn to something in the room, and so Slayer turned to see what had captured her interest. And to his surprise, it was the original occupants of the village. They were confined to a cage, malnourished and seemed to have lost their sanity, mimicking the behavior of pigmen with crazed snorting. And the fact that this virtual game portrayed their suffering so vividly that it was distressingly realistic, Slayer isn't willing to stand by. And so, without any hesitation, Slayer rushed to free them. However, even though the cage was now open, the villagers had endured so much suffering that their humanity appeared irrevocably lost, as they remained unresponsive, continuing to mimic the pigmen, and witnessing this firsthand left a bitter taste in their mouths. And with this, Luna couldn't help but curse at Genesis, believing it was all their fault. This surprised Slayer since he had never heard this name before, and it seems like Luna knows more than he had, and so he inquired Luna about it. However, before she could respond, Ah-Fei loudly called out to Slayer, asking his brother to save him because he couldn't hold back the pigmen anymore, as their numbers proved to be more than he could chew. Simultaneously, at a distance, the pig that had captured the girl had put quite some distance between them, leaping nimbly through buildings. Meanwhile, the girl had regained consciousness, but her hopes were dwindling, as she believed her fate was sealed, that she would be devoured. A short while later, the girl found herself held captive in a tall building, while the impatient pig grumbled about the tardiness of the others. Restless and bored, it turned its attention to the girl. As it drew near, it sensed the unmistakable scent of holy light, which heightened its hunger, and so the pig lost all his control, lunging at her, seemingly intent on devouring her alive. However, the girl was no coward. She wouldn't let a monster have its way without a fight, and with this unwavering courage, she manifested a blade made from the holy light and slashed at the pig, which was effective, as it caused the pig to let out an agonized scream. However, this enrages the pig even more, and so the pig resolved to end the girl's life even if it caused them to lose the holy light. But despite the imminent danger, the girl bravely faced her fate, as she believes that she will always be with the holy light no matter what happens to her. Fortunately, just before the pig's attack could land, Slayer acted swiftly, severing the pig's hand from its body. This unexpected intervention left the pig shocked, unable to fathom how Slayer had located them so rapidly. So, it inquired about his methods, but Slayer, seeing no reason to answer a monster, maintained silent. But to make things clear, finding them hadn't been a matter of luck or ease, as they had to simultaneously evade a horde of pigmen while navigating unfamiliar terrain. Nonetheless, Slayer is always prepared, as he possessed a pill capable of rendering them invisible for a limited duration when ingested. This granted them the opportunity to put some distance between themselves and the horde, affording a moment's respite to regroup and strategize. Presently, they faced two primary dilemmas. One is the pig that cannot be killed, and the other is they don't have a single clue on where the girl is now located. But given the unconventional nature of their task, Slayer concluded that it is better to use unconventional methods as well. With this realization, he proceeded to brief Luna and Afe on their next course of action. A while later, the pigmen continued their relentless search for Slayer's group. Unbeknownst to them, one of the pigmen had slipped away and was discreetly indulging in a feast of his own. But with the way he eats, it was bound that someone had figured out what he was doing. Still, even though he was caught, he used all the bullshit he could muster just to get out of his situation. However, this particular pigman, of a somewhat familiar disposition, didn't concern himself with such minor matters. Instead, he offered a warm smile to the pig and reassured him that there was no need for worry, as he had just finished his own meal as well, and since it looks like they would get along quite well, the peculiar boar, in a rather charming way, invited the pig to take a break and engage in a leisurely conversation. And because of the boar's charismatic demeanor, the pig easily accepted the invitation, and so the two of them settled in a secluded place where they could freely chat. Which Slayer didn't waste no time in using his social skill to casually open up his concerns about the trio of adventurers they had recently encountered, as it seemed to be that they are powerful and capable, so there might be a chance that the little girl they have abducted gets taken away from them. The pig, however, was quite confident and dismissed these worries, as he reassured the peculiar boar that there was no reason for concern, since Lao Wang, the fastest among their group, was in charge of the girl, and he is the fastest among their brothers, and he knows every house in the whole village, coupled with the fact that they have so many brothers, so it was just a matter of time before they hunted down those three adventurers, and got to know what they taste like, and with this in mind, he firmly believed that their plans were foolproof. Which the peculiar boar chuckled in agreement, and seeing that this pig doesn't suspect him at all, as it continued to tell him all the secrets it knew freely, Slayer took this opportunity to suggest that they should proceed with their search for the three adventurers, and assemble at the village entrance where the girl was held captive. After all, the three adventurers would undoubtedly aim to rescue her. To which the pig quickly corrected him, stating that the assembly point was, in fact, the clock tower. With this information, Slayer finally obtained what he needed. However, he couldn't afford to let any of the pigs suspect him, and so to divert any suspicion, he offered the pig a friendly smile and made another excuse, blaming it all on the liquor he had consumed. That's why he forgot where they are supposed to assemble. After that, a thunderous explosion happened near their vicinity, startling the pig, while Slayer knew exactly what was happening, as it was his cue to leave the place unnoticed, while his little brother, Afe, creating a loud commotion as he carried Luna, who was fully concealed from head to toe, in order to fool the pigmen that they had already saved the girl, which worked perfectly, as the pigmen wasted no time in chasing them as quickly as they could. With this, Slayer had easily entered the clock tower without much trouble, and now that he is closer to saving the girl, he didn't hesitate to slice Lao Wang into bits, and ran away with the girl. A short while later, Slayer and his team regrouped, making a frantic effort to exit the village while being pursued by a relentless horde of pigmen. Simultaneously, another group of pigmen decided to merge again and launch an attack from above. However, their sizable combined presence cast a noticeable shadow, alerting Slayer and his crew in advance, and so they quickly consumed agility potions, boosting their movement speed by 30% for 30 seconds, which helped them evade the giant boar's attack from above, as it also made it easier to escape the bush coal village. With this, Afe suggested they could now take a break, but due to the strange events that had occurred earlier, Slayer isn't willing to bet on those assumptions, so he proposed that they put some more distance between themselves and the pigmen before they could rest. Which was a smart decision by Slayer, because as they continued to run, they noticed shadows being cast over them. Turning to look at it, they discovered that the pigs had devised an unusual tactic, tossing one another into the air to catch up to Slayer's group. With this, it was clear that their encounter with these fuckers was far from over,